Chapter 1261. Okay. The Crown Prince nodded with a grin. He pulled her small hand and said, I'll make it for you to eat when we get back. I want shrimp stuffing. The little fellow raised her head slightly and made a request. The Crown Prince nodded with a smile. Okay. Watching the two leave hand in hand, the eldest young sir narrowed his eyes. He swept a glance at the fourth princess, who was stammering as someone helped her up, before concealing himself into a side alley with a flash. Young sir. A shadow guard in black bowed to him. How is it? Shantian Prefecture's strongholds within the Mo Kingdom capital have all been uprooted. That person said in a low voice, that person has begun to secretly make a move against Oni Prefecture again. I'm afraid that it won't be long before all of the 6 prefectures' forces disappear from Mo Kingdom. The eldest young sir chuckled. Just watch. It has nothing to do with us. Lu Yiji is dead, and even that good second brother of mine turned a deaf ear to it. Why should I meddle in other people's business? He's the future patriarch of the Qin estate. He's the one who has to worry about and control the overall situation. The eldest young sir's lips curved in a grin. He then waved his hand and said, Go back. No need to come find me again in the near future. Yes. That person vanished without a trace in a flash. Eldest Qin chuckled and walked back to the Qin estate. After today's ruckus, that brainless princess probably wouldn't dare to come find him for a while. He was so annoying to this fourth princess recently. How could there be such a shameless woman who didn't know her own worth in this world? Why didn't she look in the mirror and see her own virtue? Although he was amorous and loved all the flowers and plants in the world, he couldn't nibble on just any flower and plant. Sigh, when he thought of that wild and untamed little flower among the flowers, the eldest young sir's eyes couldn't help but narrow. Oh, it was indeed very worrying. Not long after the eldest young sir's figure disappeared, Wang Chung appeared in that small alley. He frowned slightly before disappearing. The second young sir had him follow the eldest young sir, but he didn't find anything suspicious about the eldest young sir even after watching for a long time. In any case, they were all members of the same estate. Presumably, the eldest young sir wouldn't do anything detrimental to the Qin estate. In the evening. In a tea house in the Mo Kingdom capital, 2 beautiful girls were sitting in a private room on the 2nd floor. The waiter who served the tea could not help but sneak a few glances before packing up the tea tray and walking out. I asked Miss Xian out today because I wanted to talk to you about the matter of those 20,000 mystic currency. Commandery Princess and smiled rather embarrassedly. I'm not afraid that Miss Xian will laugh at me. Last time, in order to buy that life-prolonging pill, I practically emptied out all my savings. I had originally planned to gather the money for Miss Xian in the next 2 days, but from the looks of it now, I really can't. As Commandery Princess said this, she looked a bit embarrassed. Xian giggled and raised her fan to cover her small mouth. Miss Xuan, aren't you treating me as an outsider by saying that? Since we're all friends, I don't care about that little bit of money. Commandery Princess Anne's eyes involuntarily brightened, and she quickly said with a smile, How can I accept this? Deep down, she really hoped that this Miss Xian would waive her loan of 20,000 mystic currency, but she was too ashamed to say this. Hence, she asked her out and waited for her to waive the loan. Now that she saw Miss Xian being so tactful, Commandery Princess was secretly happy, but she didn't show it on her face. Chapter 1262. Xuan is definitely going to befriend Miss Xian. Commandery Princess raised her teacup and smiled at Xian. Let me toast Miss Xian with tea in place of wine. The 2 people drank several cups of tea with ulterior motives. It was not until an hour later that Xian stood up to leave. After exiting the tea house, Bao Yan couldn't resist looking back and pursing her lips as she mocked, What Commandery Princess She can't even return 20,000 mystic currency. Does she think that other people don't know her identity? Young master, why must you get close to this woman? You talk too much. Xianu swept Bao Yan a cold glance. I told you not to follow me, yet you insisted on following me. I have my own matters to attend to. Bao Yan couldn't help but get anxious. You aren't still thinking about that stoic-faced crown princess, right? Last time, we almost couldn't even leave the Mo kingdom capital. What do you know? After saying this, Xianu didn't say anything else and walked towards the tavern with a wave of her hand. He wanted to stay here and find a chance to talk to Lil the Blockhead. He wasn't resigned to it. As for Commandery Princess Ethan, she was in an excellent mood after leaving the tea house. She strolled the streets with Sue, planning to stroll around for a while before returning to the palace. As the saying went, one was free from debt. She had just dumped her 20,000 mystic currency debt, so she planned to go to a jewelry store she was familiar with nearby to pick out a first-rate piece of jewelry for herself to celebrate. Sue also appeared extremely happy as she walked beside her. At least that Miss Xian is tactful. It is her great fortune to be able to befriend someone as honorable as Commandery Princess with a mere 20,000 mystic currency. Commandery Princess is peerlessly talented, humble, and gentle. She had begged for 8 lifetimes to be able to befriend Commandery Princess. Commandery Princess and pursed her lips as she walked with a smile. Sue had a glib tongue, so as long as she didn't say anything out of line, and liked her very much. All of a sudden, Ian stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell on the 2 women who were walking towards her. His originally good mood was suddenly replaced by anger in his heart. Her smile also froze on her face. One of the women walking towards her was wearing a hairpin that was exactly the same as hers, and the style of her clothes was also similar to hers. The yellow mattress matched with the pink skirt. However, the other party's skirt looked slightly more exquisite than hers. There was a group of colorful butterflies embroidered on the hem of the skirt. When she walked, the skirt fluttered and the butterflies danced. It was a beautiful sight. Anne's fury involuntarily erupted from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this, Sue hurriedly turned around and secretly gave the 2 hidden shadow guards a look. Very quickly, the 2 shadow guards caught up with the 2 ladies. After turning a corner, they stopped them in an alley. Anne slowly walked into that alley with Sue, sizing up that young lady who was dressed similarly to her. The more she looked, the more fury in her heart flared up. That woman's appearance was unremarkable. Her eyes were also very small, and her facial features were not even 1/10 of Anne's beauty. At this time, the 2 young ladies that had been stopped by the hidden guards were hugging their heads and curling up into a ball as they gazed at Anne's party with trepidation. Miss, what business do you have? Bao Yan walked up and slapped the butterfly skirt girl's face. Audacious. You actually intend to impersonate our Commandery Princess? What? The butterfly skirt girl was stupefied at once. She simply couldn't understand why this Commandery Princess in front of her had stopped her. Chapter 1263. According to the little girl's words, it was because her clothes were similar to this Commandery Princess's? But could she be blamed for this? How could she have known that she would get into a conflict with an inexplicable person because of these clothes and this piece of jewelry when she went out today? You're crazy. The other girl next to the girl in the butterfly skirt glared at Commandery Princess Ethan. Ethan was infuriated, and she slowly walked up to her with narrowed eyes. She raised her sleeve and slapped the girl ruthlessly. How can you insult me, the dignified Commandery Princess Ethan? That girl was knocked to the ground by this ruthless slap. She shrieked and was about to retaliate when a hidden guard subdued her with a wave of his hand. No, don't, what do you want to do? You can't be so unreasonable. You can't. The girl in the butterfly skirt looked at Commandery Princess and in terror, but she was subdued by another hidden guard just as she was about to step forward. Someone come quickly, help me. What the hell, how can there be such an unreasonable person in this world? The girl in the butterfly skirt shrieked as she struggled. Commandery Princess E and gazed at her coldly as an excited glint surfaced in her eyes. Hold them down. No, don't. Don't. The girl in the butterfly skirt looked in horror at the small knife in Commandery Princess E Anne's palm as she shook her head repeatedly while crying. Anne revealed a sinister smile as she stepped forward and suddenly slashed at that girl's face with the knife. Ah! The two girls screamed in pain from the depths of the small alley. Anne continued to wear a gentle smile as she disfigured that girl's face with the knife. As she slashed, she recalled her childhood. She was like a pitiful little bug, huddling in a flock of orioles and swallows as she was kicked and beaten. She seemed to see the Marchioness of Sue, Anne's youngest daughter again, standing in front of her with her head held high and declaring, "Go, strip this damn girl of her clothes. She really is a little bitch that is unwilling to be left out. She even dared to secretly wear my old clothes and have delusions of showing her face in front of cousin. Strip her. Beat her to death. Who wants to wear your old clothes? Who wants to wear them? What who Shuain, where in the future will definitely be one of a kind in this world. Bitch. Anne's expression was a bit crazed as she slashed the girl in the butterfly skirt's face until that face turned into a bloody mess. Afterwards, she started laughing merrily. Remember not to dress like me in the future. Commandery Princess Anne patted the unconscious girl in the butterfly skirt with her small, bloody hand. The youngest daughter of the Marquis of Sue, and so what if she was honorable? Now, he was still lying in bed like a living dead for years. She gouged out the woman's eyes, pulled out her tongue, broke the tendons in her arms and legs, but did not let her die. See, what a kind person she was. Anyone who went against her would not have a good ending. Princess, the two of them have fainted. Sue's beautiful little face revealed a hint of viciousness and a sinister smile at this moment. Break their limbs, cut off their tongues, strip them naked, and throw them into the nearby brothel. This is just a small punishment for talking back to me without any regard for seniority. Anne said this with a gentle expression. Afterwards, she turned around and left the alley, abandoning the two girls that she did not know as if they were trash. Very quickly, the two tragic passers-by were taken away by the secret guards. Chapter 1264. No one knew that such an inconceivable thing had happened in this alley just now. After Anne exited the alley, she put on her modest and kind commandery princess mask and boarded her carriage, returning to the palace in a good mood. It's been a long time since I went back to the Marquis of Sue, Anne's estate to visit my paralyzed younger sister. Commandery Princess Anne said with a smile, find a day to go back to the estate and visit her. Sue immediately nodded in understanding and responded with a smile. The carriage followed the spacious limestone path to the palace gates. When the guards saw that it was Commandery Princess Anne's carriage, they immediately let her in. Commandery Princess Anne lifted the curtain and nodded at the guards with a smile. When the carriage stepped onto the palace path and slowly headed for the Queen Dowager's Longevity Palace, Commandery Princess Anne glanced in the direction of the Eastern Palace and thought, one day, I will become the most honorable woman in Northern Mo. I won't have to live at the whims of others anymore. After the coming-of-age ceremony, the Qiao estate started preparing for second uncle's wedding. During this period of time, Wei Ziqin was as busy as a spinning top. In order to get second uncle out of singlehood as soon as possible, the entire family was really pouring in all their energy. In addition, after second uncle's wedding, the crown prince's wedding was just around the corner, so the entire Qiao estate was in high spirits. It was as if all the servants and maidservants had been injected with chicken's blood as they busied themselves all day, tidying up here and there, inside and out. This made Arbor, this idler, appear to be an eyesore. In the afternoon, darling Qiao was sitting in her small courtyard, drinking tea and eating dried fruits while also flipping through medical books and dozing off. Then she heard from outside that Madame Ren had come. Madame Ren naturally came to find her mother, so it had nothing to do with her. Arbor flipped through the medical books for a while before tossing them to the side, planning to take an afternoon nap under the faint sunlight. Everyone in the room was busy, yet she was the only one who was idle enough to count mosquitoes. Arbor had just closed her eyes when she heard the sound of footsteps coming from the lounge chair. A maidservant hurried over and bowed, saying, "The Crown Princess, the Miss of the Count of Jian An's estate has come to visit." Arbor sat up and nodded. "Oh, it's Miss Pei. Invite her in." Soon, the young miss of the Count of Jian An's mansion, Pei Jia, was led over with a personal maidservant. The girl looked to be about 17 years old and was a little shy by nature. When she saw Qiao Mu, she smiled timidly. "Greetings to the Crown Prince Consort. Last time, after receiving the Crown Prince Consort's hospitality at Fu Mountain, Mother instructed me to come forward to return the greeting." The maidservant behind her hurriedly stepped forward and tugged at her sleeve. She was speechless in her heart. She was a foolish young miss. How could she say such a thing? As Pei Jia spoke, she felt that there was something wrong with her words. Why did she feel like she was being forced by her mother to return the courtesy? She then looked at Arbor apologetically. "I'm sorry, Crown Princess. Pei Jia is clumsy and doesn't know how to speak." Arbor glanced at her and patted the stool beside him. "Sit." Arbor had already noticed that during the gathering at Fu Mountain that day, Miss Pei was a little shy and sat in the crowd like a little transparent. If it weren't for Mou and Liang Qingqing teasing her from time to time, she probably wouldn't be able to talk to anyone for the entire day. Her elder brother, Pei Dao, was also a man of few words, but he seemed to be a considerate person to Miss Li. The Countess of Jian An was a fortunate person. Arbor nodded. Seeing that Miss Pei's gaze was fixed on the medical book beside her, he asked, "Do you want to read it?" Chapter 1265. Miss Pei looked a little excited. Can I? Crown Princess. Qiao Mu handed her the medical book with one hand. Miss Pei held it like it was a treasure and flipped through it page by page right in front of Arbor. She looked as if she was intoxicated by it. The servant girl behind her was anxious to death because of her dazed miss. She wanted to reach out her sleeve to tug at her miss. Arbor waved his hand at her. Let her read. She could take a nap. These two oddballs. One of them came as a guest, but after exchanging 3 sentences with the host, she started flipping through the medical book and ignored everyone else. The other seduced the guest with the book, then left the guest alone to take a nap. When Xiao Yao came over, she almost laughed out loud. After changing the cups of hot tea for the 2 young ladies, he waved his hand and instructed the servants to bring the little servant girl beside Miss Pei, who wanted to cry but had no tears, away to rest for a while. The afternoon sun shone lazily. The trees cast mottled shadows and the atmosphere was tranquil. When the servants, who were on stimulants, passed by this quiet courtyard, they couldn't help but slow down their footsteps and lower their voices. Of the 2 girls, one was asleep with a small blanket on her stomach, while the other had her head lowered. She was happily holding a medical book, engrossed in it. When Crown Prince Mo came over, this was the scene he saw, and his lips involuntarily curled into a faint smile. His baby was so adorable no matter what she did. Even when she was sleeping quietly under the big tree, she still looked so beautiful. Your Highness. Xiao Yao, who had come over upon hearing the commotion, was about to salute when Crown Prince Mo waved his hand to stop her. How long has the Crown Princess been asleep? It's been more than half an hour. Prince Mo smiled. Then let her sleep a little longer. I'll go talk to father-in-law first. Yes. Not long after Prince Mo left, the little person sleeping there seemed to have sensed something. Her body moved slightly, and she opened a pair of slightly dazed eyes. Xiao Yao pursed her lips and smiled. She hurriedly ran over to her and said, Miss, you're awake. Did Mo Lien come by just now? Arbor turned his little face and glanced at Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao's eyes lit up. She nodded and said, Miss, you are so amazing. His Highness the Crown Prince just came by. Seeing that you were still asleep, he went to chat with Master. Oh. Arbor turned his head and saw that Miss Pei was still in the same position as an hour ago, reading the medical book with great interest. He couldn't help but feel speechless. She watched me for as long as I slept. Yes. Xiao Yao giggled and said softly, the tea has been changed twice. Miss Pei was so focused that she didn't even take a sip. The conversation between the master and servant finally attracted the attention of Miss Calligraphy Addict. She hurriedly put down the book, blushing shyly as she looked at Arbor apologetically and said, I am sorry, Crown Princess. I was so engrossed in the medical book that I forgot that I came here to thank you. Ah, Bai Hui, the pastries we brought? Where's Bai Hui? Xiao Yao couldn't help but laugh out loud. Miss Pei, don't worry. We brought that girl to her room to rest for a while. Ah. I'm so sorry. Pei Jia blushed and looked at Arbor. Although her little face was expressionless, her expression was calm and she didn't seem unhappy at all. Pei Jia's heart settled slightly. Crown Princess, I get easily engrossed in books. Chapter 1266. It wasn't my intention to neglect you, Pei Jia said cautiously. At this time, that little girl, Bai Hui, was also brought over. She looked at her young miss with a speechless expression. Madame had repeatedly exhorted her young miss to remember to talk more when she went to other people's homes. In the end, her young miss flipped through books for nearly 2 hours. Arbor waved her hand. Do you like to read medical books a lot? Pei Jia nodded her head vigorously. The little girl, Bai Hui, hurriedly explained on the side, young miss has been congenitally deficient since she was young. She could only meditate and recuperate her body. She couldn't even train her body. A prolonged illness becomes a doctor, and young miss gradually became obsessed with medical skills. Then do you like to refine pills? Alchemist? Pei Jia hurriedly shook her small hand. It's impossible for me to become an alchemist. Although I really yearn for it, an alchemist needs talent. I'm also not very talented in the art of medicine. I'm just blindly pondering. As she spoke, her small hand secretly touched the cover of the medical book, looking reluctant to part with it. Arbor tugged the corners of her mouth, and she thought she revealed a kind smile. Actually, in other people's eyes, she wasn't smiling at all. There's only a 2-year age difference between us. Don't call me Crown Princess or Miss Pei. Let's say our names, the little Crown Princess said to Pei Jia on such a leisurely afternoon. Pei Jia was faintly happy, but she didn't know that this was the joy of making friends. Her health was poor since she was young, and she basically didn't leave the house. Those noble ladies flattered her on the surface because of her family background, but they secretly mocked her behind her back for being a medicine jar. She overheard it once, so she was even more unwilling to go out and gather with others. She was 17 years old this year, but she hadn't discussed marriage yet. Because of her poor health, every family looked down on her. Fortunately, her mother kept comforting her, saying, "My family's daughter is so good. Naturally, there will be a good match for you in the future." Moreover, on Sikong Planet's mainland, there were plenty of people who remarried in their early 20s. However, most of them wasted their time because they painstakingly cultivated. She, on the other hand, was only an ordinary person. Several of her teachers had regretfully told her that with her congenitally deficient body, it was impossible for her to cultivate in this lifetime. Then I'll call you Jojo from now on. Pei Jia revealed a big smile. When the little stoic saw this, she felt that this smile was quite dazzling, so she tried her best to pull out an even bigger smile in return. However, it was a bit difficult for this stoic face to deliberately put on a smile. Jia. The little stoic nodded and handed the medical book to her, saying, "Take it back and read it." With a flick of his wrist, he took Pei Jia's pulse. "You've taken good care of your health. I'll give you a prescription. Boil the medicine according to the prescription twice a day. After half a month, you won't need to take any more medicine." A surprised smile appeared on the little girl Bai Hui's face. She stammered, "Crown Princess, is it true? Miss can get rid of those medicine jars in the future?" Arbor nodded. The two of them chatted for a while more about the medical book before Arbor stood up to see Miss Pei out of the estate. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and chuckled as she followed behind. When the Crown Prince asked about this matter later on, Xiao Yao couldn't resist saying, after Miss Pei came, she sat next to the Crown Princess and quietly flipped through the book, accompanying the Crown Princess for an afternoon nap. After waking up, the two of them hit it off. Prince Emo couldn't help but be speechless upon hearing this. 5 days later, the Qiao estate joyfully welcomed second uncle's marriage. Chapter 1267. Early in the morning, Marchioness Wei Ziqin busied herself with a group of servants. Qiao Zhongbang greeted the guests in the front courtyard, a smile on his face the entire time. He was happy for his second brother from the bottom of his heart. Although the wedding was a bit rushed, they wouldn't leave out anything that was necessary. After more than 10 years, second uncle was getting married again. He was a bit flustered and made a few mistakes early in the morning. In order to be on time, second uncle brought the groom's escorts out more than 2 hours in advance. The bride had been brought to the Ren estate a day earlier. The two residences were neither close nor far. They would be able to bring her home within 2 hours and wouldn't delay the wedding ceremony. Arbor wore a rare jubilant red dress and specially ran to Brother Xiao Hu's courtyard to see him. As soon as she entered, she heard Brother Xiao Hu quietly complaining to Xiao Yao, "Xiao Yao, I'm not Fua. Look at what I'm wearing. What do I look like? Today's old dad's wedding, not mine." Xiao Yao softly spat at him. Xiao Hu chuckled and went up to hug her. "Xiao Yao, don't you think it's time for our wedding to be on the agenda?" "Bah." Xiao Yao rolled her eyes at him. "Who's with you?" At this moment, the little fellow jumped out like a candle and called out, "Brother Xiao Hu." Startled, the couple hugging each other swiftly retracted their hands. They coughed lightly and hurriedly adjusted their collars. Arbor paced to the two with her little paws behind her back and circled around them. "Brother Xiao Hu, if you want to marry Xiao Yao, you have to ask me first." Xiao Hu immediately went up with a silly smile and rubbed his hands. "Younger sister, you won't watch your older brother be a bachelor for the rest of his life, right?" "That's hard to say." Xiao Mu tilted her small head and stood in front of Xiao Yao. "Our Xiao Yao's conditions are so good, so who can't you find?" Xiao Hu panicked when he heard this. He hurriedly grabbed his sister's small hand. "Little sister, you can't trick your brother." Arbor glanced at him, took out a box, and threw it to him. "For you." "What is it, little sister?" "The answer is your Xian breaking pill." Xiao Hu couldn't help but open it and take a look. There were 2 round Xian breaking pills inside. They were really beautiful. "Little sister, you're so good to us." Xiao Hu smiled foolishly and rubbed the back of his head. "Let's go. I still have to help mother greet the guests." "Crown Princess, I will go with you." Xiao Yao hurriedly left Xiao Hu behind and caught up with Arbor. "Along the way," she said, "when I was coming over just now, I heard that eldest Miss and Miss Biao had returned." Arbor stared blankly for a while before realizing that Xiao Yao was talking about Xiao Wenxiu and her daughter. Nodding, he brought Xiao Yao to his mother's courtyard. Arbor asked, "That whatever you on, did he make trouble for the mother and daughter?" According to Mrs. Instructions, Lord Pang took care of them for a few days. "The situation has improved a bit, but that Zhou Yuan is like a mad dog. We can't get rid of him." Arbor nodded. Every family had its own problems. She was just an unmarried little girl, so she couldn't stretch her hands too far. She had to take care of everything. In any case, she could just leave these miscellaneous matters to her parents. Her father was her cousin Pu Rulan's proper uncle. With this identity as an elder, he could naturally make decisions for Pu Rulan. Chapter 1268. When Arbor brought Xiao Yao to second uncle's new courtyard, he saw his mother busily giving orders to this and that, running around in circles with a group of servants. Hurry, hurry, the newlyweds are about to arrive. Everyone, move nimbly. Hey, bring the wedding cake into the house. The old nanny who followed Wei Ziqin by her side called out to the servants who were coming and going. When she looked up and saw Arbor and Xiao Yao, she smiled so widely that her eyes could not be seen and went forward to welcome them. Crown Princess, Miss Xiao Yao, you're here. Madam is busy right now. It's fine, I just came to take a look. Idler rubbed her small chin. Is there anything I can help you with? Spring had begun, and the air had already warmed up. Wei Ziqin paced back and forth in the new courtyard a few times, the tip of her nose sweating. Seeing her daughter come over, she hurried forward and smiled as she held her daughter's small hand. Jojo, there are so many things to do today, and there are so many people. Fortunately, your eldest aunt came early and can still help me now. Oh, that's right, Jojo, you haven't met eldest aunt and cousin yet, right? Come, come, come. Wei Ziqin held her daughter's small hand and gave Nanny Qiu a few more instructions before calling into the house. Wen Xiu, Rulan, come quickly, our Jojo is here. Two women walked out of the house. The older one was wearing a long, golden blue straight-collared gown with long sleeves. Her makeup did not seem to be expensive jewelry. When she looked at Arbor, she smiled and nodded. Jojo, you still recognize eldest aunt. The younger woman's face was very gentle and delicate. She wore a long dress with an Aquarius collar and her hair was tied up in a woman's bun. A wooden hairpin was inserted into her clean hair, and she wore a wooden bracelet on her wrist. She looked exceptionally simple. Arbor stepped forward and nodded at Xiao Wenxiu and her daughter. Eldest aunt, cousin. Jojo, good boy, I don't have any valuable gifts for you. Keep this well. It's a small token of appreciation from elder auntie. Xiao Wenxiu gave Arbor a pure gold bracelet. The quality wasn't too good. Among the pile of gold and jade in Arbor, it could be said to be second best. If it were any other young ladies who despised the poor and loved the rich, they might even mock their poor relatives. Yet Xiao Mu accepted it without another word. She nodded at Xiao Wenxiu and expressionlessly said, "Thank you, auntie." Xiao Wenxiu smiled happily. Back then, when auntie brought your cousin back to Quoto village, you were still young and might not remember. This is your cousin, Rulan. Pu Rulan stepped forward and smiled. Cousin. All right, mother and your eldest aunt still have a lot of things to do. Help mother take care of cousin. Wei Ziqin chuckled as she pulled Xiao Wenxiu and was about to leave. Just as they were about to leave, a breathless woman hurriedly ran over and beamed from ear to ear. They're here, they're here, they're here. The bridal sedan is almost at the intersection. Aya, hurry, hurry, go to the door to welcome them. Are the gongs and drums ready? Where's the drummer? Where's the drummer? Madam is ready. Let's hurry to the door. Arbor speechlessly glanced at her mother's departing figure. Her mother was busy with fetching the bride, and she had become an idle person again. She turned to look at Pu Rulan and said, Cousin, let's go to Shaolin's courtyard. It's a bit too chaotic here. Pu Rulan smiled and nodded. Okay. The two of them exited the new courtyard and turned to Shaolin's courtyard. However, halfway there, they ran into the young lady who was rushing over. Chapter 1269. There were a lot of guests that came today, and the gatehouse was busy receiving the gifts and announcing the names. The Marquis of Su An's estate's madam has arrived. The old madam of Duke Qing's estate has arrived. The manservants and maids ran back and forth in waves, taking away a group of people, and then another group of people came. It really was as busy as a marketplace, with an endless stream of people. Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbang were in the front courtyard and back garden respectively, receiving the male and female guests that came to visit. Prince Mo took a stroll around the Marquis's estate. When he found his dainty little wife, that little fellow was sitting leisurely on a swing, cracking melon seeds and chatting with her younger sister, Xiaolin. Pu Rulan raised her head and saw a tall and slender young master walking towards them. She hastily stood up and quickly walked to the swing to give a reminder. Younger cousin, someone's coming. Brother-in-law's coming. Xiao Lin immediately jumped down from the swing and held Pu Rulan's hand with a smile. Older cousin, that's His Highness the Crown Prince. Pu Rulan hurriedly curtsied. Arbor was still swaying on the swing, looking up at the man walking over. Why are you in the back courtyard? I'm here to see if my Jojo is slacking off again. Mo Lien walked over with a smile, waving his hand for Pu Rulan to get up and not be overly courteous. Arbor cast a glance at him and lightly snorted. There are so many orioles and swallows outside, I don't have the time to greet them one by one. Today was second uncle's wedding, and mother had reminded her 2 or 3 days in advance that she absolutely couldn't throw a tantrum. Everyone who came was a guest, so don't hit a guest without a word. So ridiculous. Did she need mother to remind her? It wasn't like she was crazy. If others didn't come to provoke her, how could she go crazy and hit them? The most annoying one was that whatever fourth princess, who had run to the great king and fiercely complained about her. She said that she beat her up until she couldn't see anyone. She was simply crazy. When had she ever hit this fourth princess? She didn't even know the fourth princess, okay? Thinking of this, he glanced at Mo Lien with some displeasure. He thought to himself, his house is the place with the most women in the world, so annoying. Prince Mo saw the look in his wife's eyes and hurriedly moved his head over to look at her with a smile. What's wrong? Why are you looking at your husband like that? What did I do wrong? Tell me, tell me. Jolin, who had long been used to the crown prince showing off his affection to her sister, covered her mouth and snickered. On the other hand, Pu Rulan was rather surprised. For a moment, he didn't think that His Highness, who looked so high and mighty, was actually such a person. Arbor glared at him and pushed his hand away. Cousin is here. We're all on the same side. Prince Mo smiled and grabbed Arbor's little hand. We can't take a nap today. What should I do? I'm going to sleep in the afternoon. During this period of time, idlers like Mu Tian Tian took a nap and used her free time to draw talismans. She was simply too carefree. Pay. Arbor blushed and glared at him. This guy only knew how to tease her. Today was second uncle's wedding. Could it be that she could abandon the guests in the house and take a nap alone in her room? Prince Mo smiled and rubbed the little fellow's face. I'm not teasing you. I'm just worried that you can't take a nap. You're not allowed to say it. Arbor punched him and turned her head away with a stoic expression. Jojo. Mo Lien reached out and cupped her little head. Chapter 1270. Mo Lien gazed at her with curved eyes and chuckled softly. There are still 15 days left. Arbor rolled her eyes at him, but the corners of her lips involuntarily curled up. When Xiao Lin heard this, she couldn't help covering her mouth and sniggering happily. Yet Pu Rulan asked softly in confusion, what does Crown Prince mean? Xiao Lin whispered the wedding date in Pu Rulan's ear, and Pu Rulan immediately understood and nodded with a smile. Brother-in-law. You have to prepare a big red packet. Xiao Lin sat at the stone table and shouted toward the swing from afar. Mo Lien looked over and nodded with a smile. Okay. Seventh Master Mu is here. Arbor sat in the rear courtyard and could hear the excited shouts from the front courtyard. Her gaze turned cold. What's wrong, baby? Mo Lien was slightly taken aback. His wifey was still in an extremely good mood just now, but now, her small face had turned gloomy. She really changed so quickly. However, that seventh master of the Mu family of the Divine Province was also quite strange. He came on Jojo's coming-of-age ceremony and also came on Xiao family's second uncle's wedding, as if he was very familiar with the Xiao family. At this time, several excited shouts came from the front courtyard. Everyone stood up and looked at Mu Jingrui, who strode in from the front door. They smiled and cupped their fists in salute. The white-haired elder haughtily carried a large brocade box as he followed behind Mu Jingrui. His gaze was somewhat disdainful. In his eyes, this group of brats from the lower star domain were indeed as weak as ants. Mu Jingrui presented a big gift on this trip, the Snow Summit Lingji. When the Lingji was presented, everyone's eyes were practically glowing as they stared at the spirit herb. Especially the few doctors and pill refiners among the guests. They stared at the divine herb, wishing they could pounce on it and examine it carefully. The smile on Xiao Zhongbang's lips stiffened slightly. The groom, Xiao Zhongxing, stepped forward in confusion and cupped his fists at Mu Jingrui, saying, "Thank you," in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. It was so strange. He had no interaction with this seventh master Mu from the divine land. Why did this person give him a wedding gift out of the blue? Congratulations, congratulations. Mu Jingrui smiled and said a few polite words. Suddenly, there was a small commotion in the crowd. Naturally, they parted to the sides like a tide. The little crown princess and Prince Mo walked over hand in hand, their little faces cold and expressionless. Their eyes were like daggers as they stabbed at Mu Jingrui and the white-haired elder. "What are you doing here?" Arbor was about to take a step forward when his mother, Wei Ziqin, rushed over and grabbed his little hand. "Jojo." Wei Ziqin hurriedly shook her head. Arbor glared at Mu Jingrui with a cold gaze that implied a warning. Mu Jingrui instantly understood the little fellow's meaning, "Don't speak nonsense." This was warning him not to reveal her identity as the daughter of the Mu family of the Divine Land in front of so many people, right? Just how much did she dislike the Mu family and how much did she not want to be involved with the Mu family? Mu Jingrui sighed softly in his heart. He subconsciously glanced at Prince Mo and frowned slightly. This crown prince's aura also seemed a bit off. When Mu Jingrui was sizing him up, Prince Mo also sized him up. A trace of hesitation flitted across his heart. "Ha ha ha ha, today is second uncle's big day. I didn't come late, right? Today's over. Wave." Chapter 1271. At this moment, a white-robed, skinny pretty boy appeared at the door. He brought a large chest of gifts and was escorted in by a large entourage. More than a dozen servants circled around him, shouting as they entered the door. The pretty boy's gaze flickered as he swept his gaze over everyone present and revealed a reserved smile. Next to him was a well-developed woman around 25 or 26 years old. She was gorgeously dressed and her hair was covered in pearls and jade. She had an arrogant attitude and raised her chin as she held on to the pretty boy's arm. Her ample bosom was pressed against the pretty boy's arm. It could be said that none of the officials and family members of the various dukes and marquises' estates, as well as the young masters and young misses of the aristocratic families, had such a grand display of extravagance. The dozen or so servants were all dressed in the same manner and had palm-sized copper coins hanging from their necks. Everyone stared at them strangely, feeling that they were full of the aura of nouveau riche. "Ha ha ha. Oh my, second uncle-in-law's big day today. Sorry, I'm late. A fat ball emerged from the back of the crowd. She was dressed in bright red and green clothes and her face was smeared like a monkey's butt. At first glance, she looked like a matchmaker. Fat Ball moved her feet and arrived in front of Second Uncle Qiao with a smile. Second Uncle Qiao subconsciously took a step back, and his expression instantly became extremely unsightly. Qiao Mu looked at the uninvited nouveau riche in confusion. As she looked at the pretty boy surrounded by people, a name faintly popped up in her mind. "Zhou Yuan, what are you doing here?" Qiao Hu took a step forward and tightly clenched his fists, his face full of anger. Arbor turned his head and glanced at Pu Rulan. He saw that her face was slightly pale and her eyes faintly revealed a trace of anger. Clearly, she had not expected that her ex-husband would make a public appearance in this kind of situation. "Scram! You're not welcome here." Second Uncle Qiao angrily shouted with a cold expression. "Second Uncle, is there some misunderstanding about me?" The pretty boy looked at them with a chuckle. Fat Ball hurriedly came forward and said with a smile, "Second uncle-in-law, today is your big day, so don't get angry. Come on, bring all the gifts up here." "Second uncle, this is just a small token of appreciation from our Zhou family." Preposterous. Second Uncle Qiao was furious. He was about to step forward when his elder brother, Qiao Zhongbang, stopped him. "What have you come here for?" Qiao Zhongbang sneered and shouted at Zhou Yuan. "You little bastard, you dare come here to ask for a beating? Get out of my sight." Zhou Yuan subconsciously shrank back, looking like a coward. Qiao Zhongbang and his brother were infuriated. "Eldest uncle, second uncle, please don't misunderstand. Your nephew's visit today has no other intentions than to congratulate second uncle on his wedding." The pretty boy Zhou Yuan said in a low voice, looking as if he had been wronged. Qiao Wenxiu, who was standing at the side, had long been angered by his shameless behavior. Her entire body was trembling, and her face was pale. "Mother." Pu Rulan supported her mother and stubbornly pursed her lips, not saying anything for a while. "Eldest uncle-in-law, second uncle-in-law, our family's Xiao Yuan was young and ignorant in the past, so he spoke without thinking and wanted to divorce his wife." Fat Ball smiled ingratiatingly and stepped forward to grab Pu Rulan's hand, but she pulled back and avoided it. The fake smile on Fat Ball's face froze. Chapter 1272. Enduring the anger of slapping her former daughter-in-law, that Fat Ball, Zhou Yuan's mother, laughed dryly and said, "Daughter-in-law, go back with mother-in-law. It's just a small conflict with husband. There's no need to escalate it to the point of divorce. Don't worry, mother-in-law has already taught him a harsh lesson. Xiao Yuan will definitely not mention the matter of divorce to you in the future." When Xiao Lin heard this, she jumped up in anger and blocked Pu Rulan's path with a livid face. "Are you crazy? You've already obtained the divorce document and stamped it with the official seal. How can this matter be faked? Go away. My older cousin already has nothing to do with your Zhou family. Aya, what does a child like you know? Don't meddle in adult matters. Go, go, go." Zhou Yuan's mother waved her hand in exasperation, then turned to face Pu Rulan with a smile. "Daughter-in-law, it's said that between husband and wife, they fight at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end of the bed. You can't be so angry with Xiao Yuan over such a small matter. Be obedient and go home with mother-in-law." No one had expected that such a scene would occur on such a joyous day. The guests all looked at each other in dismay. Second Uncle Qiao was so angry that his eyes were about to spit fire. He roared angrily at the door, "Where is everyone? What are you all standing there for? Throw this entire family out." After speaking, he stepped forward and kicked the gift box several times, kicking out some of the silks, satins, porcelain, paintings, and the like. He stepped forward and stomped on them several times. The woman beside Zhou Yuan, whose hair was adorned with pearls and jade and was dressed like a peacock, shrieked and rushed forward to push second Uncle Qiao away. Without waiting for Zhou Yuan to go forward and pull her away, that woman pointed at second uncle and cursed, "You pauper, who do you think you are? I gave you face, but you don't want it. These porcelain, calligraphy, and paintings are all famous works of art. You can't buy them even if you have money. You actually dare to trample on them like this. Chi-Chi, don't be angry, don't be angry." Zhou Yuan's mother hastily grabbed the Gao family's daughter's small hand fawningly. When she looked at second Uncle Qiao, there was a hint of anger on her face. "Second uncle, you're really ruining our good intentions." Zhou Yuan's mother wailed, "Originally, my daughter-in-law and son had always been fine. Ever since you took her back, she didn't recognize any of her family. She didn't even want her husband and mother-in-law. This is truly a sin brought upon by the heavens. Why don't you send a lightning bolt to kill this unfilial daughter-in-law?" Wei Ziqin was so angry that her whole body trembled. Today was her second uncle's wedding. She didn't expect that so many weirdos would come and ruin a good marriage. "Men, throw them all out." Wei Ziqin was so angry that she felt dizzy. She waved her hand and roared. The servants of the Qiao family all rushed over, but before they could even get close to Zhou Yuan and the others, they were pushed and shoved by the dozen or so retainers of the Zhou family. They raised their fists and looked like they were about to start fighting. Wouldn't this mess turn the entire wedding into a mess? Pu Rulan was so angry that her eyes were bloodshot. Supporting her mother, Qiao Wenxiu, she took a step forward and said angrily, "Stop. Zhou Yuan. You heartless and unscrupulous thing. There's a divorce agreement between us as proof, so we've long had nothing to do with each other. You actually have the face to take advantage of second uncle's wedding to come cause trouble. What did you say?" Zhou Yuan's mother immediately widened her eyes and glared angrily. What bullshit divorce agreement? In short, this old mother won't admit it. As long as you're the daughter-in-law of the Zhou family, you'll be the ghost of the Zhou family until you die. Chapter 1273. Bullshit. In order to marry the Gao family's daughter, your son wants to divorce my older cousin. Before Qiao Hu could finish his sentence, he was pounced on by that cursed old woman. Xiao Yao hurriedly pulled him to her side, preventing him from being pounced on by that old woman. Old Xiao family is unreasonable. Old Xiao family is abusing their power to bully others. Zhou Yuan's mother suddenly sat down and began to bawl like a shrew. The crowd of officials, nobles, madams, and noble ladies all looked at each other in dismay, their expressions awkward. In this situation, was it better for them to leave or stay? My son wants to marry the Gao family's daughter, but why don't you ask the lords and young masters present, which of their families doesn't have a few beautiful wives and concubines? Your old Qiao family is too overbearing. Could it be that when your Qiao family's daughter marries, the husband's family is not allowed to take in concubines and take in co-wives? Zhou Yuan's mother slapped her thigh and bawled. She scrambled up from the ground and tugged on a certain official's robe, yelling, "This official, please be the judge for this little woman. Isn't their Qiao family being too unreasonable?" The man didn't expect this village woman to use such a trick. He immediately retreated in embarrassment, but he couldn't stop the corner of his robe from falling into the old woman's hands. After tugging back and forth, he heard a ripping sound and the corner of the man's robe was torn off by the old woman. His face turned green on the spot. Xiao Zhongbang was enraged and kicked Zhou Yuan's mother. "Get out of my way. Is official Su all right?" Xiao Zhongbang looked apologetically at that green-faced official. "Someone come quickly, bring official Su to change his clothes." After Zhou Yuan's mother took a kick from Xiao Zhongbang, she lay on the ground and stammered. She clutched her chest and pretended to be in unbearable pain. Old Xiao family is going to kill someone, kill someone. Mother." The pretty boy Zhou Yuan quickly stepped forward and helped his pretentious mother up from the ground. He turned to glare at Pu Rulan and berated, "You stupid woman, don't you think you've lost enough face? Hurry and come home with us." Pu Rulan supported her mother, who was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She coldly gazed at Zhou Yuan and said, "You and I have already separated." Zhou Yuan pointed at Pu Rulan and cursed, "You vicious woman, are you trying to anger my mother to death? My mother said that she doesn't recognize this divorce. Pu Rulan, don't think you can ride over your husband and mother-in-law just because you have the Marquis of Jieyuan's estate backing you up. You wicked woman. Causing trouble all day long, making the whole family restless. Look at what you've become. Why didn't he learn from Chi-Chi and see the big picture? Chi-Chi doesn't even mind letting me marry you as a co-wife. What else are you dissatisfied with?" Qiao Wenxiu was so angry that she leaned backwards. She pointed a trembling finger at Zhou Yuan and said, "You little bastard. Back then, in order to marry the daughter of the Gao family, you first wanted to demote your wife to a concubine. Our Rulan refused no matter what, so you colluded with your mother to fabricate a crime for our Rulan, wanting to have her divorced and become a nun. Now, you see that Rulan's uncle is the Marquis of Jieyuan's estate, so you want to turn around and coax our Rulan back. You. How can there be such a shameless, black-hearted mother and son in this world? Qiao Wenxiu was so angry that she couldn't stop wiping her tears. Zhou Yuan's mother's eyes darted around. She slapped her thigh and wailed, "I've been wronged, I've been greatly wronged. You're making slanderous accusations. When did we say that we wanted to divorce Rulan?" Chapter 1274. It's just that Rulan is jealous and refuses to accept the Gao family's miss. That's why things have turned into such a complicated situation. All the young masters and masters present here, please be the judge of this. This Qiao family's daughter is jealous by nature. Zhou Yuan's mother exclaimed with great pretense, "If she's like this, who would dare to marry your old Qiao family's daughter in the future?" Her eyes darted around, and then she shouted loudly, "I heard that your Qiao family's eldest daughter is going to marry into the palace to be the crown prince's consort. Could it be that you can request His Highness the Crown Prince to only guard your old Qiao family's daughter for the rest of his life? And you won't allow His Highness to have 18 consorts from the 3 palaces and 9 courtyards?" Everyone speechlessly looked at each other in bewilderment. Strangely enough, this fire had spread to His Highness the Crown Prince. His Highness was being shot while lying down. At this time, a magnetic voice chuckled, "That's right. It's not just 18 consorts from the 3 palaces and 9 courtyards, it might even be multiplied." Prince Mo, who was being shot while lying down, narrowed his phoenix eyes and looked around. "Duanyu, don't think that this crown prince can't recognize your voice just because you're speaking in such an eccentric manner. You're always trying to dig a hole to bury me. Dream on. Jojo wouldn't believe you." Prince Mo held Arbor's small hand as he coldly swept a glance at that foolish woman, Zhou Yuan's mother. "You old woman, you dare to speak nonsense and slander this prince?" Zhou Yuan's mother was completely flabbergasted. She dazedly looked up at that handsome man who was like a god. Her mouth actually felt a bit dry. "Your Highness? Your Highness the Crown Prince?" So it turned out that the rumor that the Crown Prince doted on the Qiao family's eldest daughter immensely was true. The marriage of a mere second master Qiao, who had no scholarly achievements, was originally a very ordinary marriage. Just because he was eldest Miss Qiao's second uncle, the Crown Prince actually came to give face? No wonder when her old man learned that Pu Rulan's eldest uncle was the Marquis of Jieyuan's estate, he rained down a torrent of abuse on her and her son, saying that they were short-sighted and only cared about what was in front of them. He insisted that they bring extravagant gifts to coax his daughter-in-law, Pu Rulan, back. So there was such a relationship between them. If the Zhou family and old Xiao family could become in-laws again, with eldest Miss Qiao's relationship with the Crown Princess, the Zhou family would definitely have a meteoric rise in the future. Zhou Yuan's mother hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed with a fawning expression. This commoner did not know that your Highness was here. This commoner misspoke. With Mo Lian's status, she naturally wouldn't lower herself to the level of a stupid woman. She was too lazy to care anymore and moved her gaze away. Zhou Yuan hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands with a flattering smile. "Your Highness Crown Prince, this is all a misunderstanding. It was originally a family matter, but now it has become a joke in front of His Highness the Crown Prince and everyone else." Gao Qiqi twisted her plump body and held Zhou Yuan's arm in a show of force. She glanced at Pu Rulan arrogantly and disdainfully. "Don't pretend. You should be happy that your husband and mother-in-law are willing to come and pick you up. It's better to know when to stop. If it weren't for Big Brother exhorting her to be patient, she wouldn't have let this bitch enter the Zhou family's doors again. In any case, her husband had already promised her. Now, she was only coaxing this stupid woman back for the sake of the Marquis of Jieyuan's estate. Once she used the Marquis's estate's influence to establish a relationship with the Crown Prince, this stupid woman would be useless in the future. She could do whatever she wanted with her. She was the daughter of the richest family in the Mo Kingdom capital's Gao family. Her family had so much food that they couldn't finish it. Chapter 1275. Now that she, Gao Qiqi, was willing to marry into this tiny Zhou family, it was the Zhou family's good fortune accumulated over several lifetimes. If the Zhou family didn't properly curry favor with her, would they dare to treat her unfairly? As for that slut Pu Rulan, she was just a bit luckier and was able to recognize a relative from the Marquis of Jieyuan's estate. Otherwise, she would have to live in a rundown temple and eat chaff and pickles. You actually dare. Qiao Wenxiu gazed at the arrogant Gao Qiqi and felt even more heartache for her daughter. Back then, if her domineering mother-in-law hadn't cried and made a fuss and forced her daughter Rulan to marry into the Zhou family, how could there be so many troublesome matters now? Thinking about it made her even sadder. She was just a useless bun. It was her fault, it was all her fault. She didn't protect her daughter well. She was cowardly and useless. She didn't dare to resist, which led to the current situation. Zhou Yuan, you little bastard. You still dare to bring her to our Qiao family. Second Uncle Qiao was so angry that his head was about to explode. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many guests here, he would have raised his fist and beaten Zhou Yuan, this little bastard, to death. Zhou Yuan was still a bit afraid of his two uncles, Qiao Zhongbang and Second Uncle Qiao, and shrank behind Gao Qiqi when he heard this. Gao Qiqi puffed out her chest and waved her hand forcefully. Two vigorous body cultivators walked out from behind them. They crossed their arms and looked disdainfully at the Qiao family crowd with cold eyes. These two body cultivators were newly hired bodyguards by the Gao family. Compared to the body cultivators who had injured Second Uncle Qiao and Little Tiger, they were 2 levels stronger. Their 2 bulky arms brimming with explosive power and bulging muscles crossed their arms in front of their chests. The moment the 2 body cultivators from the Gao family appeared, they subdued the group of madams and noble ladies. They retreated in fright, afraid that the fight would affect the innocent. Gao Qiqi swept a mocking glance at Pu Rulan. Pu Rulan, don't be so shameless. What are you still standing there for? Take her away. Qiao Wenxiu grasped her daughter's arm tightly in fright and shrieked, "You dare! Don't touch my daughter! Don't touch her!" Gao Qiqi walked in front of Pu Rulan and arrogantly raised her head. She glanced at Pu Rulan from the corner of her eyes. The Marquis's estate can support you for a day, but can it support you for a lifetime? Pu Rulan, I advise you to quit while you're ahead. Don't embarrass yourself and your mother-in-law. Anger flashed in Pu Rulan's eyes as she abruptly raised her hand, looking like she was going to slap her. Zhou Yuan's mother shrieked, "What are you doing? Why do I have such an ignorant daughter-in-law? Look at Qiqi. She's the dignified daughter of the Gao family. A pure and innocent little girl like her doesn't mind sharing a husband with you. Why are you still being so pretentious?" Slap. Gao Qiqi slapped Pu Rulan's hand away and fiercely slapped her. Pu Rulan stretched out her small hand and covered her face that had been slapped. Her eyes immediately turned red. Gao Qiqi smiled and shook her hand. She laughed mockingly and provocatively. "Coward, why don't you make a move? I don't think you have the guts. You're just a good-for-nothing with a dead father, yet you still want to compete with me? I, Gao Qiqi, am willing to be so benevolent and let you enter the Zhou family anew. That's already thinking highly of you. You shameless thing, slut. Hit me. Hit me if you want. Pu Rulan, I don't think you dare to hit me." Chapter 1276. Arbor blinked, then blinked again. Suddenly, she pattered to Pu Rulan and Gao Qiqi's side. When the young masters present saw the crown princess's actions, the corners of their mouths twitched. Slap, slap, slap. Ha ha ha. Sure enough, the little crown princess was funny when she didn't make a move. After giving Gao Qiqi 3 slaps, she ignored the stupefied Gao Qiqi. The little crown princess turned to look at her older cousin with a puzzled expression and asked, "Older cousin, others have repeatedly invited you to hit her. Why aren't you doing anything? Invite, 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 invite." Pft, Situ Yi's hand, which was waving the folding fan, stiffened slightly. Gao Qiqi seemed to be frozen in place. After a few seconds of stupefaction, she suddenly shrieked. The little crown princess suddenly waved her hand and sprinkled a handful of powder at Gao Qiqi's face. When the surrounding people saw this, they immediately retreated in fright, afraid that this inexplicable powder would contaminate them and cause them to be caught in the crossfire. Ah! Abba! Abba, Abba, Abba! The moment Gao Qiqi opened her mouth to speak, she discovered that she seemed to have been poisoned into a mute. She had no voice at all and could only make a few basic Abba, Abba sounds. She looked at Arbor in horror. The 3 kilograms of powder on her face kept falling down because her facial muscles were trembling in fear. Abba, Abba! Abba, Abba! Gao Qiqi reached out to grab Zhou Yuan's hand and shook it vigorously. Zhou Yuan immediately put on a fierce front and angrily said, "What did you do to Qiqi?" Zhou Yuan's mother also shrieked, "Old Xiao's family is too unreasonable. As the saying goes, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. You people actually all encouraged my daughter-in-law to run away from home. Now you're doing this to our Qiqi." Without waiting for the little crown princess to make a move, a chubby, bald little monk popped out from the side and angrily shouted, "Old benefactor, you're wrong to say that. Your daughter-in-law ran away, so why did you go and tear down our temple? You're simply unruly, eccentric, and unreasonable." Zhou Yuan's mother looked at the little monk who had suddenly appeared with a stupefied expression. Arbor did not wait for her to howl again. In a flash, he appeared in front of them. A blue light flashed in his hand, and more than 10 ebony body-securing talismans flew out. Set, set, set. After one round, other than the 2 body cultivators with similar cultivation to her, who struggled free after being immobilized, everyone else was immobilized on the spot. They were all immobilized on the spot, and each of them was in a strange posture. It was finally quiet. Arbor waved his hand. "Move them out. It's the crown princess." The servants of the Qiao family swarmed forward, some carrying and some dragging the Zhou family out. When they were moving the Zhou family out, they even pinched them a few times. Gao Qiqi watched in horror as those manservants came up to carry her away. She was thrown out of the Marquis' estate's main gate by the Qiao family without any resistance. "Throw it further away. It's annoying to look at it," Arbor instructed, then turned to look at the 2 frozen body cultivators from the Gao family. "What? Waiting for a meal?" The 2 body cultivators glanced at her, and one of them quickly swept his eyes over everyone. "Little miss, you're a talisman practitioner, right?" Arbor waved his hand, and a thunder spirit talisman appeared in his hand. "It looks like you want to try it." "That's fine." Arbor nodded, his cold, electric gaze shooting a glance at Mu Jingrui and Old Bai. "I'll let you experience it." Chapter 1277. This was the Thunder Spirit Talisman that she had just learned. When the Thunder Spirit energy exploded on her body, she was afraid that it would be a little uncomfortable. The little fellow couldn't be bothered to say more. With a flick of her finger, the 2 Thunder Spirit Talismans shot towards the 2 body cultivators like arrows released from a bow. With a wave of her hand, a defensive barrier was set up around the 2 of them. This was to prevent the spiritual energy from the Thunder Spirit Talisman from spilling out and harming others. Otherwise, Arbor wouldn't have to do something so superfluous. After all, there were many guests here, and they were all people of status. She didn't want to hurt anyone, as there would be a lot of chatter later. The 2 ebony Thunder Spirit Talismans instantly split open above the 2 body cultivators' heads, and the talisman energy instantly burrowed into their bodies. In just a breath's time, strange changes began to occur above their heads. A bolt of thunder spirit energy that tore through the air suddenly descended, landing above their heads with a rumble. Accompanied by the sound of thunder and a flash of lightning, the 2 body cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning, and they immediately felt an indescribable pain in their bodies. Bzzzt, bzzzt. Their faces instantly darkened, and their hair was charred black when the lightning touched them. This was only the first bolt of lightning. In the next 2 minutes, a total of 9 bolts of lightning fell. When the last bolt of lightning exploded above their heads with a rumble, the 2 body cultivators' heads rolled. The 2 unlucky body cultivators rolled their eyes at the same time and fell to the ground with a plop. Just like that, 2 13th level body cultivators were struck unconscious by a small talisman. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the little crown princess standing in front of them. Upon seeing this, Xiao Mu creased her brows slightly and muttered to herself, "I thought it could strike down 12 bolts of lightning." On the other side, the white-haired elder's mouth was slightly agape, and he looked at Arbor in disbelief. This girl could actually draw one of the 5 spirit talismans, the Thunder Spirit Talisman? One had to know that those who could draw the 5 spirit talisman were all talisman geniuses, 1 in 10,000. Even if their talisman clan possessed the inheritance of 5 spirit talismans, the number of talisman masters that were capable of drawing 5 spirit talismans didn't exceed 100. Among the younger disciples, the only ones who could draw such professional Thunder Spirit talismans were probably the Mu family's eldest young master and eldest young mistress. Furthermore, the high-grade Thunder Spirit talisman that the first miss had drawn could only generate 6 bolts of spiritual lightning. One had to know that each additional bolt of lightning was extremely difficult to obtain. Their talisman aristocratic family had tens of thousands of disciples, but less than 100 of them had mastered the 5 spirit talisman. A little girl who had always lived in a mere lower star field had actually learned the Thunder Spirit talisman on her own? The white-haired old man's heart stirred slightly. The old master had indeed found the right person to send the 7th master to search for this young lady. Previously, he had always been somewhat dissatisfied, because in the past 10 years, he had been accompanying 7th master everywhere to find a child that was basically impossible to find. It was very troublesome, and it even delayed his own cultivation. If it weren't for the fact that the old family head had secretly bestowed him with a lot of cultivation resources, he wouldn't have been too happy to accompany the 7th master on this trip. But now, all these thoughts had vanished without a trace. A 15-year-old genius little girl who could skillfully draw Thunder Spirit talismans. If they brought her back to the Divine Lands, after a period of careful nurturing, she would definitely become a core member of the talisman aristocratic family in the future. Chapter 1278. In the future, it wasn't impossible for her to assist eldest young master in controlling the entire talisman patrician family and lead them to the pinnacle of the divine mainland. Thinking of this, the white-haired elder's mood surged. It was as if he could already see the scene of the talisman patrician family reaching the pinnacle of life. The current talisman patrician family was neither high nor low among the 6 great patrician families of the divine mainland and could only rank 3rd or 4th. Not to mention the divine mainland's Qin family, their position as the head of the 6 great patrician families was unshakable. Even the Duan family, the number 2 concealed weapons patrician family, couldn't compare. And if their clan could produce a young genius like Xiao Mu, then it would be hard to say how they would develop in the future. Xiao Mu dispelled the defensive boundary and gazed apathetically at those 2 body cultivators. Someone, throw them out. Yes. The servants of the Qiao family rushed forward in high spirits, kicking and punching the 2 body cultivators and dragging them out like dead pigs. Only after tossing them far away did they stop. Eldest Miss was truly formidable. In the Qiao family, the same thought surfaced simultaneously. As long as eldest Miss was here, no matter who dared to come and cause trouble, they would only have a miserable end. Mu Jingrui looked deeply at Arbor and softly chuckled. The crown princess is truly an eye-opener. Arbor ignored him and turned to the dumbstruck second uncle Qiao. Second uncle, it's fine now. Everyone, please take a seat. Right. Take a seat, take a seat. Mo Lien reached out to squeeze his wifey's hand before leaving with Xiao Zhongbang and the rest. As for the womenfolk, Wei Ziqin arranged for them to take their seats. After such a commotion, everyone's interest waned. Fortunately, nothing else happened during the banquet, so the guests and hosts enjoyed themselves thoroughly. Arbor glanced at Pu Rulan and gave Xiao Lin a look. Xiao Lin, immediately understood and intimately hugged Pu Rulan's arm. Cousin, don't be unhappy. There's no reason for you to be in a bad mood because of that cheap man. Oh right, cousin, what's your cultivation level now? My aptitude isn't high. I've always hovered around level 5 Mystic Cultivator. What does it matter? I'm only a level 6 Mystic Cultivator and have just touched the barrier of level 7 Mystic Cultivator. I don't even know when I'll be able to break through. Being teased by her younger cousin, Pu Rulan's dejected mood involuntarily improved a little, and she said with a smile, "Younger sister, you're still young. At your age, you're about to break through to become a level 7 Mystic Cultivator. Your talent and aptitude must be very impressive." Of course. Xiao Lin, giggled as she pulled Pu Rulan's hand and said, "Cousin, when we're free, why don't we exchange our cultivation experiences with each other? Who knows, we might be able to help each other." Very good, very good. Pu Rulan also knew that her cousin was deliberately changing the topic to make her happy. As he thought about it, his heart couldn't help but warm up a bit. He turned to look at the little stoic sitting on the side and eating. He pursed his lips and said with a smile, "Younger cousin, just now. I've troubled you." The little stoic's small hand holding the chopsticks paused, and she shook her head with a serious expression. "It's no trouble. I'm bored anyway. Wasn't it pretty good that someone delivered themselves to her door to help her practice talismans?" Wei Ziqin almost choked on her daughter's words. Arbor ate a few more times when she suddenly saw a huge egg abruptly jump out of her inner world and shriek, "Woman! Hurry, hurry! I smell the scent of black spirit jade." Chapter 1279. What black spirit jade? Arbor stared in bewilderment at the egg that had suddenly jumped out. The egg anxiously howled at her, "Hurry, hurry, you idiot! I told you to hurry and get up, why can't you understand me? Hurry and carry me, go over there, over there. I really can smell the scent of black spirit jade. Hurry, hurry." Arbor couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache after being yelled at by the egg. She went forward and hugged it, then ran in the direction it was pointing at. What black spirit jade? Tell me clearly. Why did the profound spirit jade sound so familiar? Sister, I'll go with you. Seeing that there was a show to watch, Xiao Lin, immediately stopped eating and casually took 2 bites of food before hastily getting up to chase after Arbor. Wei Ziqin turned to look at Xiao Yao, who was standing beside her, with a puzzled expression. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and laughed. "Don't worry, madam. It should be fine. Miss will probably be back soon." However, Wei Ziqin asked, "That's a talking egg?" She turned her gaze and saw that the madams and young misses at this table also revealed slightly shocked expressions. It was clear that she wasn't the only one who felt that her child was a bit strange. It's an ancient phoenix egg," Xiao Yao said with a nod. In any case, this matter was no longer a secret, so there was no need to cover it up. When the 8 great patrician families returned from the Mystic Beast Forest, they were all spreading the news that Miss had obtained a phoenix egg. As for Arbor, she hugged that chirping phoenix egg and ran in the direction it was pointing. After running for a while, she stopped and asked with a puzzled expression, "That's the front courtyard. What are we going there for? So long-winded." The egg shouted. "I told you to go, so go. What's with all the nonsense? Let's go." Arbor. Strange, these words sound somewhat familiar. Xiao Mu hugged the egg and swiftly ran to the front courtyard's entrance. She poked her small head inside the arched door and saw that nearly 100 tables had been set up in the court, and her father and second uncle were glowing from drinking with others. She hurriedly retracted her little head and hugged the egg as she asked seriously, "I remember now, that black spirit jade. Chio told me about it before. It was said to be an extremely rare heavenly treasure that could replenish the energy of the 5 spirits. What use is it to you?" Look at how excited the egg was. Profound Spirit Jade is a great supplement and is also very beneficial to me. What does a kid like you know? Hurry up and go. As long as I absorb the Profound Spirit Jade, I can break out of my shell. You're the kid. Arbor stretched out its little paw and knocked on the egg. Then, he regretted it. She didn't know what kind of broken egg it was, but it was as hard as a diamond. When she knocked on it, her 2 fingers hurt. Go. What a big shot. Arbor thought. You're about to break out of your shell, yet you're still yelling at people all day long. If only this guy could be cooked thoroughly. What are you doing? The egg yelled. Arbor hurriedly reached out to cover it. Suddenly, she realized that the egg couldn't cover its mouth at all. Can't you communicate telepathically? Are you trying to attract everyone here? Arbor scolded it in annoyance. An invisibility talisman appeared on her fingertips. The egg muttered in disdain, and you're sneaking around. What are you afraid of? Go over now and ask that person for the Black Spirit Jade. If he doesn't give it to you, I'll beat him up for you. Arbor, why does she want to beat me to death? Chapter 1280. Hurry and go. Don't be so long-winded. Arbor slapped an invisibility talisman on the egg. Preposterous. This lord has always been upright, and I've never done anything unscrupulous. Even if I'm robbing, I'll rob openly and attract the attention of the world. Arbor couldn't be bothered with it and threatened, if you yell again and attract people here, I'll go back. Who cares about your Black Spirit Jade? The egg didn't utter a word. It couldn't be helped. People had to lower their heads under someone else's roof. Little Master was so unreliable. She had already picked it up for so long, but she didn't take the initiative to ask how to hatch it. It could only rely on itself. But speaking of which, although this master was deceitful, she was still obedient. She told her to come find the Black Spirit Jade, so she followed. Why was it flying? The egg unexpectedly discovered that it had been kicked out by that deceitful master and landed steadily next to a table. It rolled past several people's legs without touching anyone. You bastard kicked me again. You know best what the Black Spirit Jade looks like. Hurry and come back immediately after picking it up. My invisibility talisman is only an intermediate level talisman and can hide for about 15 minutes. Hurry up and don't let anyone discover you. After the 2 communicated mentally, the egg was so angry that it almost fainted. What the egg wanted the most right now was to kill this unreliable fellow. His little master actually told him, an egg, to steal the Black Spirit Jade from the crowd. Was there anything more unreliable than this? If he had hands and feet right now, he would definitely kick her to the outer star domain. It simply made him speechless. Arbor secretly stuck an invisibility talisman on herself and leaned against the wall to look around. From her position, she could see Duan Yu, Mo Lien, and Situ Yi. She also saw eldest Qin, Omega Kotoku, and many other patrician families' patriarchs and young masters. What a joke. With her cultivation realm, she naturally wouldn't foolishly stick an invisibility talisman on herself and walk in front of Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and the others. Because it was useless. She wouldn't foolishly run in and invite ridicule. She found a more secluded place, where she peeped at her eggs. The egg really was exceptionally nimble. There were several times when it looked like someone's foot was about to step on its shell, but it would roll over. It continuously rolled past several tables and headed towards the table next to Mo Lien's. The table next to Mo Lien's was filled with the young masters of the 8 great clans. Arbor surreptitiously observed and discovered that the place that idiot was rolling over just so happened to be in eldest Qin's direction. That Black Spirit Jade couldn't be on eldest Qin's body, right? It would be a miracle if an idiot could steal it. Arbor flicked the non-existent dust off his robe and calmly turned around to leave. You actually ran away? I feel that you are getting further and further away from me. Why are you going? Let me tell you. Come back quickly. If you don't come back, I'm going to scream. I will scream with all my might. Damned woman. Come back. Go ahead and shout. You shout. What's the use of shouting so loudly? You'll just be discovered and beaten up by a group. You're actually my master. The egg wailed loudly in her conscience, deeply hurt. Accompanied by the little fat squirrels, ha ha ha, in the background, the egg jumped in anger and burrowed under the tablecloth. Black spirit jade, it saw the black spirit jade hanging on that man's waist. Chapter 1281. If it had hands right now, it could immediately rip that black spirit jade off her body. It was all that damn lass's fault. She actually kicked an egg inside and left it to fend for itself. So infuriating. Swoosh. The tablecloth was lifted, and a sharp gaze suddenly landed on it. The egg shrank back in fright and rolled toward Emolien's table. Prince Emo, who was currently speaking with his father-in-law, suddenly caught sight of something round in the corner of his eyes. When he focused his gaze, his mouth involuntarily twitched. He saw that phoenix egg rolling toward him in a very human-like manner, running frantically the entire way. When it saw him, it was as if it saw a brother it hadn't seen in 800 years. Duan Yu was holding a wine cup in one hand as he crossed his slender legs and chatted with Situ Yi about his last trip to the Mystic Beast Forest. He suddenly caught sight of the two young sirs from the Qin estate at the neighboring table from the corner of his eye, and his gaze abruptly shot over. He creased his brows and glanced over. However, he discovered that those two weren't glaring at them, but seemed to be following those two's gazes. He saw a large egg rolling swiftly and nimbly to Emolien's side before ducking under the tablecloth on their table. It was a very large egg. Eldest young Sir Qin's eyes brightened as he seemed to have thought of something. He then stood up with a grin and strode toward Emolien. Your Highness the Crown Prince, please make way. What are you doing? Prince Emo stretched out his long leg to stop eldest young Sir Qin from lifting the tablecloth. Your Highness the Crown Prince, that egg just now was sneakily rolling past me. I suspect that it wants to steal something from me. The Crown Prince couldn't maintain his solemn and aloof expression for a moment, and he burst into laughter. You're crazy. What can an egg steal from you? On the side, Duan Yu was also laughing so hard that he propped his forehead with his hand. Hey, I say, eldest Qin, you forgot to take your medicine when you went out today, right? Ha ha ha. Situ Yi couldn't hold back and also guffawed along. The eldest young master glanced at them with a faint smile. That egg kept rolling back and forth beside my feet. I have reason to suspect that it is up to no good. Qiao Zhongbang's mouth twitched, and he hastily smoothed things over with a smile. Eldest young Master Qin, are you mistaken? Where are the eggs? There are no eggs, no eggs. Situ Yi laughed loudly. He couldn't help it. Why did he feel that this conversation was so strange? There's an egg, and it's under your tablecloth. You'll know once you lift it up. The eldest young master smiled and opened a folding fan, gently waving it. The cinnabar in the middle of his forehead flashed slightly under the sunlight, appearing extremely enchanting. Before Emolien could stop him, second Uncle Qiao, who had drunk a few cups, lifted most of the tablecloth with a whoosh. Everyone poked their heads together and looked under the table. Immediately, they burst into laughter. No eggs, where are the eggs? No eggs. Ha 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 ha. Duan Yu crooked his head in laughter, and his peach blossom eyes, which were suffused with a cold glint, probed eldest young Master Qin up and down. He blinked and chuckled. Hey, are you picking a fight, HM? Fourth Duan, I don't believe you didn't see it. See what? Qiao Zhongbang was baffled. The bottom of the table was completely empty. There wasn't even a speck of bird poop, let alone an egg. I didn't see it. Duan Yu shook his head. Ask Xiao Mo if you don't believe me. Chapter 1282. Prince Mo nodded solemnly. I didn't see anything. Eldest Qin's mouth twitched, and he also guffawed. The Crown Prince and Fourth Duan both need to have their eyes checked, right? Bam! Second Uncle Qiao abruptly slapped the table and stood up, his face flushed from drunkenness. He pointed at eldest young Sir Qin and exclaimed, You're the one who needs to have your eyes checked. What do you want to do? Where's the egg? Where's the egg? There's only an idiot like you. Everyone. Mo Lien face-bombed as she stifled her laughter, unable to restrain it. Second uncle was too comical. He was drunk after 3 cups. She already told him to stop drinking, but he still drank so much. Second young Master Do hastily walked over and mediated, all right, eldest young Master Qin and second uncle of the Qiao family are both a bit drunk. Let's not bother about those balls. Today is second uncle of the Qiao family's big day, Hey. It's fine if other people have poor eyesight. It's too fake if His Highness the Crown Prince, fourth young Sir Duan, and brother Situ all pretended not to see. Eldest young Sir Qin waved the fan in his hand and said with a grin, How about we wait here for a while and see if it will show its true form? I don't know what you're talking about. Duan Yu resisted the urge to burst into laughter and forcefully lowered the tablecloth. Eldest young Sir Qin reached out to stop him, but Duan Yu immediately kicked out. Seeing that these two were about to fight for no reason, Qiao Zhongbang quickly went up to stop them. Let's talk things out. During this chaotic moment, a white light suddenly flitted past everyone's eyes. It was so fast that they could only see a bit of round fur. That speed was simply comparable to a bolt of lightning. It brushed past eldest young Sir Qin's waist and swiftly leaped onto the roof, disappearing in a few breaths. When eldest young Sir reached out to touch it, a strange smile appeared on his face. Omega Kotoku had been sitting at the table without moving from start to finish. Her eyes flickered, and she stood up to walk towards eldest young Sir. Now you see it, right? My jade pendant was stolen. Eldest young Sir looked at Prince Mo and Duan Yu with a sardonic smile. The two shameless fellows shook their heads at the same time. Nope. Ha. Situ Yi laughed awkwardly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the drunk second Uncle Qiao exclaim, There's really an egg. After a quarter of an hour, the egg appeared. It immediately moved towards its teammates, Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and Situ Yi. Ha. Eldest young Sir Qin applauded with a chuckle. You all see now, right? This young Sir already said that the Crown Prince and fourth Duan should be the ones getting their eyes checked. Duan Yu. The Crown Princess has arrived. At this moment, the 2 guards guarding the small arched door in the front yard saw the Crown Princess's figure flash past. It was as if their brains had short-circuited for 3 seconds before suddenly reconnecting. They hurriedly shouted at the crowd. The young Crown Prince Consort flew over and looked expressionlessly at the crowd. Mo Lien immediately went up to him, her eyes narrowed into slits. Jojo, are you looking for your husband? I'm not looking for you, I'm looking for the egg. Mo Lien. Duan Yu guffawed and looked at Mo Lien mockingly. Your status is even lower than an egg. Scram. Mo Lien threw him a cold glance. As they spoke, Arbor had already walked up and bent down to pick up the egg on the ground without a ripple of emotion in his eyes. He turned his head and suddenly sent a palm strike over, shouting sternly at eldest young Sir Qin, You hit it? Everyone. Chapter 1283. The eldest young Sir's mouth twitched, and he hastily dodged to the side. Arbor kicked over half of the table. Before it could flip over, Mo Lien held it down with one hand. Bam! The table didn't move. Why did you hit my eggs? Arbor coldly glanced at eldest young Sir Qin. You better give me a very good reason. Otherwise, I'll beat you to death. Everyone. Situ-E was laughing so hard that his stomach hurt and didn't want to answer. Since it's your egg, why did it sneak into the forecourt on its own? The eldest young sir looked at this little fellow in amusement. What should he do when he felt that this stoic face was a bit amusing? Arbor was expressionless. Taking a walk. Taking a walk. Taking a walk. Her dad, Xiao Zhongbang, couldn't help but twitch his eyebrows. He wanted to cry on the inside. His daughter didn't even know how to find a more normal reason to lie. An egg? The eldest young sir's smile widened. What do you know? Taking a walk will help it hatch. Arbor hugged her huge egg and turned to walk outside. She even threw them a very disdainful look. Ignorant and ill-informed people like you who don't have eggs won't understand. Move aside, don't block the way. Everyone. This sentence didn't sound too pleasant to the ears. Crown Princess, come back and explain things clearly. Who doesn't have eggs? After a while, Duan Yu finally sputtered with laughter. He pointed at the stiff-faced eldest young Sir Qin and guffawed, you don't have eggs. Ha 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 ha. Crown Prince, have the Crown Princess come back and explain things clearly. The eldest young sir exclaimed at Prince Mo, both amused and exasperated. Prince Mo turned his head away with a guffaw, too lazy to bother with him. Arbor could still hear Duan Yu and the rest's wild laughter even after walking out of the courtyard for a long time. She inwardly cursed, crazy. She forcefully knocked on the egg. Can you come out immediately after absorbing that piece of black spirit jade? How is that possible? I need at least 1,000 pieces of black spirit jade to come out of the egg. Do you think I'm a weakling like you humans? I need a lot of profound spirit jade. Arbor's little face darkened when he heard this. He glared at her and said, then why did you spend so much effort to steal that piece of black spirit jade from eldest Qin? Are you crazy? What's the use of this cup of water? What's the point of stealing it? It's better to have a piece than to have none. After absorbing this piece, you only need 999 pieces, right? The egg said with conviction. Arbor didn't say anything and tossed the egg up. The egg screamed, woman, you're going to kick again. With a kick, the egg was sent flying. 2 hours later, the egg rolled back strenuously. When it saw the little fellow lying on the bed with a comfortable expression, it couldn't help but be so angry that its lungs hurt. It was infuriating to have such an unscrupulous master. It was just asking her to find a piece of profound spirit jade, but look at how worried she was. She actually kicked it so far away, causing it to bounce back for a long time. The egg angrily sat in its little nest of cotton and didn't utter a single word for a long time. Arbor hugged a fruit platter as she lay on the bed and ate. Rather than wasting so much effort to steal a piece of profound spirit jade, why don't you tell me how you're going to find a piece of profound spirit jade? Why don't you tell me where this kind of profound spirit jade vein is and I'll go dig it out? The originally listless egg suddenly bounced out of the pile of cotton and exclaimed excitedly, why you're willing to find profound spirit jade for me? Arbor's hand that was peeling a banana paused. Chapter 1284. Looking at the big egg that had hopped onto her bed, she raised her small hand and stroked its eggshell very tenderly. The phoenix egg inexplicably felt its hairs stand on end, and its eggshell shook and trembled. A white furry ball abruptly jumped into her arms, holding eldest young Sir Qin's jade pendant in its mouth. Arbor reached out and took it down. She flipped it over and over to examine it, but couldn't see anything special about it. It looked like an ordinary white jade pendant. Are you sure this is some kind of black spirit jade? The egg bounced around and said repeatedly, of course. Master, inject mystic energy into it and peel off its outer layer. Arbor did as she was told and quickly peeled off the jade pendant's outer layer, revealing a piece of warm white jade half the size of her palm. It emitted a faint silver glow. That egg immediately hopped over and urged, Master, quickly place this piece of black spirit jade on my eggshell. Arbor nodded and threw the black spirit jade onto the egg. In the span of a few breaths, that piece of black spirit jade was sucked into the phoenix egg and disappeared into the air. Arbor tilted her head to look at that egg that was no longer noisy and had become very quiet. She observed it for a while and saw that it didn't move. Only then did she put down the fruit platter in her hands and plan to take a leisurely afternoon nap. After the Chiao family finished preparing for second uncle's wedding, they did their best to cooperate with the palace in preparing for her wedding. Arbor was idle again these 2 days. She holed herself up in her room every day to draw talismans, and her talisman arts had improved greatly. On this day, when he was taking a nap, the 12 jade slips that were quietly staying in his spiritual pool suddenly lit up. The 7th jade slip flew out and unfurled, rows of small characters floating on it. The little fellow in her sleep quickly absorbed them all. Arbor abruptly opened her eyes and looked at the hazy floating muslin above her head. Her gaze was somewhat vacant. Had she broken through to Yellow Level Talisman Master? It hadn't been that long since she broke through to High Rank Talisman Master, but she had broken through to Yellow Level Talisman Master so quickly. This greatly surprised her, but also made her somewhat happy. Being a yellow grade Talisman Master meant that she had already entered the world of Talisman Masters. The current her already had the absolute qualifications to stand in front of everyone and say that she was a great Talisman Master. She rolled over and got up from the bed. Her eyes became clear in an instant. Then, she used her holy sense to look at the newly learned magic charm in her conscious. After advancing to Yellow Grade Symbol Master, only one demonstration talisman floated down. Arbor picked it up and looked at it. It was a deity summoning talisman, summons a celestial spirit to the world. It can assist in battle for 2 hours. This should be the powerful talisman that the small monk had mentioned earlier. Arbor stood up excitedly and then stood beside the table. He used his spiritual sense to check the talisman spell's hidden jade slip and found that a new talisman spell had appeared. Puppet Charm. As long as the person under the charm gives it a hint, it will obey orders for 7 days. Of course, there was a prerequisite for this kind of charm technique. Her cultivation had to be 3 levels higher than the other party. Otherwise, it was very easy for the incantation to fail, and the consequences of the backlash was something that no talisman master could bear. The appearance of the person under the puppet charm didn't change in the slightest. Their behavior was also no different from that of a normal person. Arbor seemed to be thinking about something. Xiang Yuanyuan's chubby face inexplicably appeared in her mind. Could it be like what she thought? This thought only appeared in her mind for a moment before she cast it aside. Chapter 1285. Xiao Mu carefully read through the contents of that jade slip again and also obtained a piece of information. When the 8th jade slip was opened, she should be able to learn profound level talisman charms. In addition, once she stepped into the profound level talisman master realm, she would be able to draw jade talismans. Drawing jade talismans symbolized a great leap in the great talisman master realm. The talisman power of jade talismans was estimated to be 3 times greater than that of ebony talismans. There was a trace of excitement on the little fellow's face. She picked up the gold-beaded talisman pen, took out 2 ebony pieces, and began to learn how to draw deity-inviting talismans. That demonstration talisman was drawn really well. Speaking of which, who was so considerate to draw a demonstration talisman for her for every new talisman she learned? Arbor immersed herself in drawing new talismans. After stepping into the yellow level talisman master realm, the difficulty of drawing deity-inviting talismans had greatly increased compared to the high-level and mid-level talismans from before. She needed to devote all her attention to it. Soon, she entered a completely selfless state. Wei Ziqin, Qiao Lin, Mo Yen, and the others came to see her one after another, but she didn't notice at all. It was as if she was in a completely vacuum environment, turning a deaf ear to what was happening around her. Drawing this deity-inviting talisman took her all the way until late at night. After failing no less than 30 times, near dawn, Arbor finally succeeded in drawing a deity-inviting talisman. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. Holding the deity-inviting talisman she drew and comparing it with the demonstration talisman, she felt that there were still a lot of shortcomings. This senior was obviously much more proficient in drawing deity-inviting talismans than her. Although she also began to gradually become proficient after repeated failures, she still somewhat despised herself when compared. Forget it, let's leave it at that for today. Arbor put away the 2 deity-inviting talismans and rubbed her small flat stomach. Her nose suddenly sniffed, as if she smelled the fragrance of chopped green onions. Here, a bowl of piping hot wontons. A slender hand held a large blue and white porcelain bowl in front of her. Arbor raised her head and saw that fellow's face leaning over, smiling at her. Arbor picked up the bowl of hot wontons and glanced at him. He took a bite and asked, "When did you get here?" "Sigh, I've been here for half a day." It was just that a certain someone had been immersed in drawing talismans, completely ignoring the outside world. She left her husband to the side and ignored him. Arbor drank 2 mouthfuls of soup and felt his stomach warm up. His big eyes twinkled. "It's delicious." "Of course. This is not just a simple bowl of wonton. What's so special about it?" Apart from the delicious taste, the wonton was just the right size to be eaten in one bite. On the other end, the man winked at her. "I put all my love into this. Can't you tell?" Arbor pursed his lips and rolled his eyes. "You're always so talkative." Mo Lien chuckled and rubbed her head. "Jojo, let me tell you something. At daybreak, I will head to Jiaozhong Defense Base. I estimate that it will take about 10 days to get back to the capital." Arbor paused with the spoon in her hand. "Where are you going?" Mo Lien smiled. "It's nothing big. Just a routine inspection." "Liar." Arbor puffed up her cheeks and looked at him angrily. "Tell me the truth. What a lousy excuse." She wasn't stupid. Chapter 1286. What's the point of a child being so smart? Mo Lien sighed helplessly. He lifted his hand and placed the little fellow on his lap. Wrapping his arms around her, he said softly, "A bit of trouble has cropped up. Jiaozhong Defense Base's water source has been secretly destroyed by someone. Just like you said before, they've started attacking the water source. You didn't take proper precautions?" Arbor looked at Mo Lien worriedly. "That's a small, remote base, so its defenses definitely can't be as watertight as the large bases around the Mo Kingdom capital. Even Little Seven has to fly for about 3 days from the Mo Kingdom capital." Mo Lien gently tucked the strands of hair by her cheek behind her head and smiled with narrowed eyes. "Jojo, don't worry. Hubby will rush back within 10 days. I definitely won't miss our wedding." Arbor cast him a displeased glance. "I'll go with you." "No, that place is too far, and the situation is unclear. It's a bit dangerous." Mo Lien hugged her and said, "Be good and listen." Arbor looked up at him. "If you don't bring me along, I'll secretly follow you." Mo Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked down at her and said, "So naughty." Arbor reached out and hugged his waist with her small paws. "Let's go together." "Why are you so annoying?" Mo Lien looked like he couldn't do anything about her. He leaned his jade-like forehead over and rubbed it left and right. "Annoying, annoying. Let's go together. The Imperial Court issued a cleanup mission for Jiaozhong Base. There will be many people accompanying me. There's nothing to worry about, Jojo. Just stay here obediently and happily prepare to be my bride. Let's go together." The little fellow's eyes were round and wide as he looked at him with dissatisfaction. Mo Lien couldn't help but be at his wit's end. When this little fellow was stubborn, even 18 horses couldn't drag her back. "I'm just going to take a look at the situation there. Specifically, it's not that dangerous." The little fellow's little eyes couldn't help but sweep up and down his body. He pursed his little mouth and harumphed angrily. His face was taut and he didn't say anything. Mo Lien was at her wit's end when it came to this little emperor baby. She sighed and reached out to cup her little face. She mumbled, "All right, all right, all right. Let's go together." He really couldn't dissuade this little fellow. It was too annoying. Arbor jumped down from his body, opened the closet, and took out several pieces of clothes, shoes, and socks that he usually wore. He stuffed them into the bag, threw it over his shoulder, and ran to Mo Lien. "Let's go. Mo Lien, dot. My Jojo, we're leaving at dawn. It's still early." Mo Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wrapped his arms around her waist and carried her to the bed. "Let's sleep for a while before we set off." Arbor glanced at him suspiciously. "You didn't sneak away while I was asleep, did you?" The two of them lay in bed with their clothes on. Mo Lien turned to look at his little wife and shook his head in amusement. "Since I've already promised you, I won't go back on my word." Humph, Arbor still felt a little uneasy. She reached out her little hand to grab a lock of his long hair and held it tightly in her hand. She snuggled into his arms and found a comfortable position. She cheered softly. "Sleep. Mo Lien, dot. You're sleeping comfortably." Poor thing. His whole body stiffened as he lay there. His nose was filled with the little fellow's alluring sweet scent. Chapter 1287. Amused, Mo Lien hugged the little thing stiffly and tossed and turned for a while. She didn't know when she fell asleep. While she was in a daze, she could hear the sound of someone talking briskly in her ears. Arbor lifted her heavy eyelids and dazedly opened her eyes to look around. She suddenly discovered that she was surrounded by a vast expanse of clouds and mist. "You're awake." Mo Lien's amused voice rang by her ears. Arbor's spirits were roused, and she shifted her small body. Only then did she realize that she was sitting on the dragon's back and nestled in Mo Lien's arms. When she turned her head, she saw many familiar faces. Senior brother Situ, senior sister Liang. "Jojo, you're awake." Liang Qingqing, who was gnawing on a corn cob, gave her a wide grin with 2 corn kernels stuck to the corners of her mouth. "Morning, Jojo." There was also a white fox the size of a small mountain flying next to the dragon. Duan Yu was sitting cross-legged on the fox's head and looked down at the bewildered Arbor with a wave of his hand. The little fellow's gaze swept over, and she couldn't look away. She stared at that large furry fox and extended her small paw. Mo Lien grasped her paw in his hand at once and swept Duan Yu a disdainful glance. "Stay away. Chestnut." Duan Yu's eyes lit up, and he asked with a grin, "Jojo, do you want to come over and sit?" Arbor blinked and was about to nod in agreement when the golden dragon swung its tail and shot its long body far away. The group of people sitting on the dragon's back all jolted, and they hastily wailed as they steadied themselves. "Fuck. You petty Mo Lien." Duan Yu pointed forward. "Chestnut, Chestnut, chase." Chestnut strode forward with its chubby legs, and its large body shot forward several kilometers with a kick of its hind legs, closely following Little Seven's speed. This time, Mo Lien recruited 100 members to accompany her on the cleanup operation at Jiaozhong Base. Every one of them was at least a great mystic cultivator at level 11 or above. There were 4 people with special abilities, and all of them had extraordinary hearing and speed. Among the party, Little Six Jing didn't participate. Not long after he returned from the Mystic Beast Forest, he broke through to become a great level 10 mystic cultivator. Soon after, he returned to the forest and went alone to find a suitable mystic beast to contract. Arbor just woke up and turned to ask Mo Lien, "Have we been flying for a while?" "Fortunately, it's only been an hour." Mo Lien lowered her head and glanced at the little fellow. "Eat some dry food to fill your stomach first. We can only find a place to stay at night." The little fellow took out the minced meat and cornbread that she always kept in her pocket. After eating 2 of them, she was a little full. "Is the situation at Jiaozhong Base rather serious?" "Yes," Mo Lien nodded, 4 hours ago, I received a message from a member of the Night Pavilion. There's no more information now. I suspect that he probably met with a mishap. Arbor's small face tensed up as she nodded and said, "It seems there's some trouble." Mo Lien reached out to rub her small face and whispered to her with a smile, "Don't worry. Besides the 100 great mystic cultivators recruited, I've already instructed the hidden Night Pavilion to dispatch 3,000 disciples to secretly hurry over here. There shouldn't be any major problems." Mo Lien looked ahead indifferently. It shouldn't have been long since the entire Jiaozhong base was breached. I think we need to summarize the lessons learned this time and nip the problem in the bud. Chapter 1288. Arbor nodded in agreement. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. Currently, they didn't even know who that organization was and had always been in a passive position. It was indeed time for them to get in touch with them and understand more. The Golden Dragon flew for 3 days and 2 nights on this trip to Jiaozhong base. During this time, they only rested twice and cooked some food. Occasionally, they would encounter a few blind zombies, but they were quickly dealt with. Arbor didn't need to worry at all. When they were 5 kilometers away from Jiaozhong base, they could see a group of refugees frantically running toward them. These people should be the survivors of Jiaozhong base. Compared to the original tens of thousands of people in Jiaozhong base, there were probably less than 3,000 people who had escaped. Moreover, the most worrying thing was that there might be infected people hidden among them. They could mutate at any time and harm another group of people. After these refugees escaped from Jiaozhong base, they would definitely rush to the largest base nearby, Rice City base. However, the city lord of Rice City's fortification might not allow them to enter the city immediately due to safety reasons. That was for sure. It wasn't that the city lord of Rice City base was selfish. As the city lord, he had to consider his own citizens in all aspects. His priority would definitely be his own base. And if these 3,000 people continued to wait in hunger and fear, who knew what would happen? Little 7, go down. Mo Lien pointed down. It was only 2 to 4 hours of walking from here to Jiaozhong base. Looking up from here, they could see that Jiaozhong base seemed to be shrouded in a layer of boundless black fog in the distance. It had completely evolved into a ghost town. Mo Lien pursed his lips tightly and suppressed a trace of anger in his heart. This was the underground organization's provocation. Previously, he had picked 2 of the underground organization's strongholds. One was the underground village, and the other was the large stronghold in the Mystic Beast Forest. After several days, the underground organization began to counterattack, wanting to teach him a lesson. He guessed that this was the reason why Jiaozhong base had been attacked. There were so many bases in the country. It was impossible for him to pay attention to all of them. For such a small and remote base, their defenses definitely weren't as good as the large fortifications. Even though he had already given the order to pay attention to the water source, there were too many small fortifications that could be taken advantage of. The Golden Dragon descended from the clouds. Prince Mo carried Arbor and, together with the 100 great mystic cultivators behind him, jumped down from the dragon's body and landed lightly on the ground. Among the 3,000 refugees, many of them cried out in surprise as they stared with wide eyes at the group of immortals descending from the sky. Wow! Mother, look at the sky. Wow, a big fox is flying. The fox has ascended to heaven. Duan Yu leaped down, and the 7-tailed heavenly fox chestnut turned into a streak of light that instantly vanished into the mystic beast space inside his body. Little golden dragon Yen Qi also circled in the air, swung his dragon tail, and instantly returned to Mo Lien's body. A level 7 mystic cultivator strode out from the crowd of refugees and cupped his fists at Mo Lien and company. He asked with some excitement, You are the great mystic cultivators sent by the imperial court to clean up Jiaozhong base. Mo Lien nodded. Emichim. What is the current situation of the Jiaozhong fortifications? Chapter 1289. This one is Lu Yuan, the second manager of the city lord's estate in Jiaozhong Fortification. The level 7 mystic cultivator sighed. The city lord and his wife both passed away in this sudden disaster. At this time, a 7 or 8-year-old boy suddenly rushed out like a calf and crashed headfirst into Mo Lien and Arbor. He repeatedly complained and shrieked, "Why did you come so late? My father and mother are both dead. It's all your fault, it's all your fault for coming so late. It's all your fault for being useless, useless. Useless. Young sir, young sir." Lu Yuan hastily strode forward with an awkward expression and dragged over the kicking and crying boy. He apologized to Mo Lien with a wry smile. "This is the city lord's estate's young sir. Everyone, I'm truly sorry. This child suffered quite a bit of shock because of his parents' deaths." Arbor indifferently glanced at the child. Suddenly, she shook her small hand, and the pitch-black crow repeating crossbow's muzzle aimed at the 7 or 8-year-old boy. Lu Yuan jumped in fright and hastily reached out to grab the boy with his sleeve. He repeatedly retreated several steps with the boy in horror. "Enno, what are you doing?" "This miss, why it's our young sir who spoke wildly and didn't know his place. Please spare his life on account that he's just a child. You think I want to kill him because he scolded me?" Arbor gazed indifferently at that second manager Lu Yuan. She only felt that this person was very laughable. Although she wasn't a good person, she wasn't so narrow-minded. There was only one reason for her to take action: this child has been infected. Look at his eyes. Based on the extent of his mutation, he'll completely lose his rationality in less than 16 hours. As soon as she said this, the crowd instantly fell silent. Everyone silently retreated in unison, their eyes suffused with traces of horror. The second manager of the city lord's estate, Lu Yuan, also unwittingly loosened his grip. Then, as if he thought of something, he hugged the child and repeatedly shook his head at Arbor. "No, no, it can't be like this. This miss, you must have seen wrongly, right? You're lying to yourself." Arbor's crow repeating crossbow was ready to fire. He frowned and said, "Get out of the way. Don't be soft-hearted." "No, I won't back down." The second steward, Lu Yuan, did not know what he was thinking. He only knew that deep in his heart, there was a conviction that supported him. He absolutely had to protect this orphan of the city lord's mansion. He had to protect him. "You can't protect it." Arbor's voice was cold. "Even if you keep him for a few hours now, once the time is up, he will completely mutate. There is no medicine that can cure him." "No, there's hope. Miss, since you are so resourceful, you must be able to save him, right?" Arbor shook his head helplessly. "It's hopeless. At least for now, there was nothing she could do." Everyone who was infected and mutated could only watch as he walked step by step into the abyss of death. There was no other way. "No." The second steward, Lu Yuan, hugged the boy tightly and retreated step by step. But the group of refugees beside him did not let it go. Seeing that he wanted to shrink back into the crowd, everyone parted to the sides. They couldn't help but mutter, "Second steward, don't harm others. That's right, that child is hopeless. You can't harm all of us for him." Lu Yuan abruptly turned his head and glared at the crowd. Chapter 1290. Don't forget who sacrificed themselves to save so many of your lives. Don't forget who it was that helped you all stall for time so that you could escape from the city. It's the city lord and madam. They led 2,000 death warriors and fought with their lives on the line against the corpse puppets. That's why all of you were able to escape from the city and save your lives. Now, you people want to repay kindness with enmity and send the only orphan of the city lord's mansion to his death? His powerful words made everyone look at each other in dismay. Some people instantly felt a sense of shame in their hearts. However, the young lady said that the young master will mutate in 16 hours. You believe what others say? Lu Yuan said angrily, "If we watch the young master get killed today, are we still human? Arbor tilted his head and his cold gaze landed on the second manager. Even if you get bitten by him and get infected, you don't care? Lu Yuan held the little boy's shoulders tightly and swallowed his saliva. No, I don't care. Xiao Mu's gaze followed this person's face before sizing him up from head to toe. You seem a bit strange. What do you mean strange? You have ulterior motives towards him. Arbor looked at the manager coldly. The second manager shuddered. Under the pressure of that gaze, his legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. Arbor glanced at him but didn't say anything. He put away the crow-repeating crossbow and pulled Mo Lian's hand. Let's go. Ah, this young lady, may I ask, what do we do? Didn't you want to go to the Rice City fortifications? Arbor glanced at them indifferently. Continue. A few grumbles came from the crowd. Didn't you come to save us? Why didn't you arrange for us to go to the Rice City fortifications? That's right, that's right. If we go to Rice City's fortifications, we definitely won't be able to enter their gates. We'll have to wait for a period of inspection. Wouldn't that mean that we'll be starving outside the city for a few days? Mo Lian glanced at them with a half-smile. Isn't this a normal procedure? Just do as I say. It won't take up much of your time. Right now, shouldn't you all be rejoicing that you were able to escape? Liang Qingqing sneered. She crossed her arms and looked at the burly men who were chattering away. A bunch of grown men, chattering like women. If you have so much energy, you should kill a few more zombies. Don't always think about asking others for selfless help. It's as if the whole world is your mother. We don't owe you anything. Hilarious. Everyone had risked their lives to rush to Jiaozhong Defense Base, and the rewards weren't necessarily that great. Let's go. Everyone followed after Mo Lian and the others in Arbor. For some reason, the little boy in Lu Yuan's arms had been glaring at Xiao Mu with a hateful gaze. When Arbor walked past them, the little boy jumped up. That boy actually jumped up and pounced on Xiao Mu like a crazed tiger cub, opening his mouth to bite her arm. You're looking to die. Mo Lian jumped in fright. She didn't expect the little boy to have such a strong desire for revenge. Chapter 1291. Earlier, Jojo merely aimed the crow-repeating crossbow at him for a short while. That child actually remembered this kind of hatred in his heart and waited for an opportunity to act, immediately wanting to take revenge. It was extremely rare to see such a vengeful child. Mo Lian kicked over, causing that boy to somersault and fall to the ground. However, although his kick looked heavy, he actually held back. After all, he didn't really want to bicker with a brat. However, the child's vicious actions just now had really angered him. Even if the child had come for him, he could have just laughed it off. But if the child had come for his Qiao Qiao and even wanted to bite her, causing her to be infected as well, that was absolutely not allowed. You brat, you've grown gutsy. Little young sir. Lu Yuan hastily lunged forward to protect his body and blocked Duan Yu's kick. Don't. Young sir and miss, please don't be angry. Little young sir only did this in a moment of anger. He's still young, so he doesn't know anything. Don't bicker with him, I beg everyone. Don't beg them. The boy scowled as he viciously glared at Arbor's group, his eyes faintly glowing red. Didn't she say that I don't have long to live? I'm going to bite her to death and bury this woman with me. The boy angrily kicked his legs but couldn't break free from Lu Yuan's embrace. Lu Yuan found a sturdy rope and tied that boy up. Only then did he wipe his sweat and smile apologetically at Arbor. Sorry, Mississippi little young sir's parents' death greatly agitated him, so he did such an offensive action. Arbor glanced at that boy and shook his head with a sigh. He tugged at Mo Lian's sleeve and quietly said, "Don't worry about it, let's go." Everyone then quickly walked past them and hurried to their destination, Jiaozhong Base. Duan Yu glanced behind them, his gaze aloofly fixed on Lu Yuan. This person is a bit strange. He is. If normal people learned that the people around them had mutated, they would at least be a bit fearful, if not scared to death. At the very least, they would want to distance themselves from the other party for their own safety. But this Lu Yuan that it was a strange feeling. Mo Lien sneered, Jojo is right, this person has an ulterior motive. You think he's strange because he's the only one who's wearing an inappropriate jacket and a cotton sleeve. It was already the beginning of spring. Perhaps it was still a little cold in the morning, but at this time, it was impossible to wear a jacket. It was so hot that he was going to die. Hearing this, everyone nodded in realization. He already knew that the young master of the city lord's mansion was infected. Several people exclaimed in unison. Mo Lien nodded. That's right. He knew about it a long time ago, and he had already made all the necessary preparations. Your Highness's observation is meticulous. It is indeed so. A male disciple from Daybreak Sect nodded. TSK. What is this person's goal? The one who spoke was none other than eldest Qin. This rascal had mixed in with the 100-person team. It wasn't until they set off that Mo Lien discovered he had actually fabricated a fake name to participate in this Jiaozhong base cleanup operation. Mo Lien swept him a disdainful glance. You can even make up a fake name to participate in the operation. You're so smart, yet you still don't know what the other person's goal is. Little Bao, the crown prince is scolding me. The eldest young master turned around in a huff to look at the expressionless arbor. Chapter 1292. Serves you right. Arbor expressionlessly tossed him these two words with a stoic face. She then pattered forward with small steps. Eldest young Sir Qin's face darkened as he glared at several nearby team members who were secretly snickering. Mo Lien chuckled and quickly chased after his little wife. Jojo, walk slower. There's no rush. Arbor was rather anxious. She wanted to see the extent of the damage done to Jiaozhong fortification. How exactly did the underground organization attack the water source? The group set off on foot. Other than that superhuman with abnormal hearing who had some difficulty following the group at high speed, everyone else walked very easily. Everyone set off for Jiaozhong base. In less than 2 hours, they saw Jiaozhong fortification's city gate standing not far away. More than 30 brainless zombies were wandering in front of the city gate. When they smelled people approaching, they all turned their heads and looked at Arbor's group with flickering red eyes. Everyone, be careful. These are all level 4 zombies. Arbor instructed. She moved the crow-repeating crossbow in her hand, and an arrow pierced straight through the head of one of the zombies. After the arrow pierced through the first zombie, it then pierced through the head of a second zombie that was pouncing over. One arrow exploded 2 zombies. The crow-gold arrow circled in the air before returning to the crow-repeating crossbow with a whoosh. When the others saw this, they immediately refused to be outdone. They all flung out their mystic energy at the several dozen wandering zombies from afar. Dense white mystic energy instantly struck the zombies one by one. After evading the first wave of mystic energy, a few zombies were immediately blasted into smithereens by the second wave of mystic energy that pounced on them. This battle was basically a one-sided purge. After the 30 or so zombies at the city gate were all cleaned up by the 100 great mystic cultivators, everyone followed Mo Lien and Arbor into Jiaozhong base. More than half of the Jiaozhong fortification's gatehouse had already collapsed. Broken stones mixed with mud were piled up in a corner. As soon as he entered, he saw a woman who was missing half her head sitting at the city gate. She was hugging a child who was missing half of his body. How pitiful. A female mystic cultivator sighed and walked toward the mother and son. Don't go there. Following a stern rebuke, the woman, who had been sitting stiffly, suddenly opened one of her eyes. She let out an ear-piercing shriek and pounced at the female mystic cultivator. Whoosh! The black gold arrow pierced through the woman's head. At the same time, the the female mystic cultivator also reacted extremely quickly and threw out a mystic energy. Soon after, she pounced on the child that the woman was hugging. The child was missing half of his body but had opened his eyes. Mother and son were simultaneously pierced by the black gold arrow and mystic energy. They rolled to the side and finally stopped moving. The female mystic cultivator exhaled and turned to nod at Arbor. "Thank you. These corpse puppets are gradually developing intelligence," Liang Qingqing said with a cold expression. "They're starting to learn how to hide or disguise themselves and wait for an opportunity to attack us. Be careful. We don't know what else is inside." Situ Yi raised his head to look at the nearby sky with a heavy gaze. He kept feeling that there was something else within the pitch-black fog that shrouded the fortification. Chapter 1293. The group composed themselves and walked into the city. There were scorch marks everywhere. Walking on the empty street and listening to the orderly footsteps of his team, he felt a little creeped out from the bottom of his heart. This place was unreasonably quiet. It made them feel like there were many pairs of eyes quietly watching them from the shadows. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned around, and her sharp gaze vigilantly swept over the corner of the wall. There was nothing there. But she clearly felt like she was being watched just now. Was it a misconception? The entire fortification exuded a rotten stench. This was already an empty city. But there must have been a large number of zombies gathered here. The best solution was to get rid of them together to prevent these things from escaping and harming the nearby fortifications. For example, the nearest large fortification, Rice City. The group followed closely behind the main group. After walking for about 5 minutes, they actually did not find a single zombie. "This is a bit fishy," Liang Qingqing muttered to herself. "Emichim. How is it possible that we haven't seen a single zombie after walking for so long? Where do you think they've all gathered? Unless there's a place or something in the city that's attracting them. Otherwise, it's impossible." Mo Lien stopped in his tracks, and everyone else also stopped in succession. When they followed his gaze and looked over, everyone was startled one after another. They saw a huge, black skull in front of them. Although it was formed from dense fog and did not seem like it would cause much harm to people, its mouth was wide open. It seemed like it was waiting for prey to enter on its own. Mo Lien's group stopped when they reached the skull's mouth. They felt like they would be swallowed by the skull's mouth if they walked any closer, so they couldn't help but feel a bit strange. Aside from this, there were 2 small alleys on the side that they could pass through, but they looked dark and had no end in sight. Their line of sight was obscured by the black fog, so it was a bit blurry, making it even harder to walk. Everyone turned their gazes to the Crown Prince, waiting for his decision. Duan Yu raised his hand, and a luminous pearl swiftly flew into the skull's mouth, illuminating the surroundings with a sizzle. Everyone's line of sight widened greatly at once. However, there was no skull in front of him. In fact, it was the city lord's mansion. The mouth of the skull corresponded to the gate of the city lord's mansion. It was quiet all around, without a single corpse puppet wandering around. Everyone looked at each other and simultaneously asked the Crown Prince with their eyes, "Enter?" The Crown Prince nodded. "Let's go in and take a look." The group followed behind him and walked towards the main entrance of the city lord's mansion. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned her head and looked behind her warily. However, other than his teammates, there was no one else. But where did that extremely uncomfortable feeling of horror come from? Liang Qingqing frowned. This city lord's estate was located at the centermost location of the entire city district. Now that Duan Yu used the illuminating pearl to illuminate the surroundings, it was as if it was daytime. The illuminating pearl's range was extremely wide, and it could last for a long time. Therefore, they would be able to see their surroundings clearly for at least an hour. Everyone could only hear the light sound of their footsteps touching the ground. Other than that, the surroundings were completely silent. Just like that, under Mo Lien's lead, the group entered the main hall of the city lord's mansion and walked through the corridor towards the backyard. Chapter 1294. At the same time, the Fan clan's Fan Shuming welcomed 3 uninvited guests. In the middle of the night, these 3 people appeared in his bedroom as if they had entered an uninhabited area. Although he was badly frightened, he still looked at them calmly. "You, who are you?" A voluptuous and enchanting woman walked forward. She looked to be in her early 20s, and her red lips were painted so brightly that they looked like the color of blood at first glance. "I heard that the Fan clan's little brother also went to the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm last time." Fan Shuming's heart trembled, and his body inexplicably trembled. He looked at the woman's group with some alarm in his eyes. The fact that these 3 people could silently infiltrate their Fan clan without being discovered by anyone in the Fan clan showed that their cultivations were clearly higher than everyone in the Fan clan. If he didn't answer the woman's question properly, Fan Shuming felt that he might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. With this thought, he nodded obediently to the woman. "Yes." The woman giggled, and her soft hands climbed up Fan Shuming's shoulders. She half leaned on him and said with a smile, "Elder sister wants to ask you something." Elder sister heard that there is an extremely precious Xuanji core in this Mystic Beast Forest secret realm. Did anyone obtain it? Fan Shuming reflexively shook his head. The woman immediately turned hostile and mercilessly slapped his face. Her expression was somewhat cold as she said, "Think carefully before you speak." Fan Shuming only felt the pain on his face, and his entire body shuddered. He hastily shook his head and said, really didn't. Not long after we entered that secret realm, the entire secret realm collapsed. How could anyone obtain? Halfway through his words, he seemed to have thought of something and paused. The woman's eyes brightened, and she propped an arm on Fan Shuming's shoulder. She asked in a coaxing tone, "Little brother, you have to think carefully. This matter is of great interest to you and your clan." Bang! Fan Shuming's door was suddenly kicked open by someone. Fan Shuming looked at the door in surprise and saw his elder brother standing there with a cold expression. His gaze fell on the 3 people in the room. "Hee, I didn't expect that there would be someone in the Fan clan who could sense our aura." The woman giggled and winked at Fan Shoha, who had appeared at the door. "You visited the Fan clan at night just to ask about the whereabouts of the Xuanji core?" Fan Shoha asked with a cold face. "That's right. Could it be that you know?" The woman looked at him suspiciously before shaking her head. "With your age, it's impossible for you to enter the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm. Choming, tell them the truth." Fan Shoha looked up at his younger brother and secretly gave him a look. Fan Shuming seemed to have thought of something. He nodded and said, "Before the mystic realm collapsed, there was only one person who entered Senior Xuanji's small house. However, we don't know whether she has obtained the Xuanji core or not," Fan Shuming added. "Oh? Who is it?" There was a hint of excitement in the woman's eyes, and her entire body was stretched taut. "Crown Princess." The woman's eyes flickered, and her large, blood-red lips curved in a smile. "It looks like we still have to make a trip to the palace." "No need." Fan Shoha's eyes flickered as he shook his head. Chapter 1295. The Crown Princess isn't in the palace at the moment. She went to a remote small fortification and can't return for the time being, Fan Shoha explained aloofly. "May I ask where seniors are from?" Fan Shoha cupped his hands and bowed to the 3 women. "If necessary, this younger brother is willing to take you to the small fortification to search for the Crown Princess." Fan Shuming's eyes widened when he heard this, and he looked at his elder brother Fan Shoha incredulously. A young man who hadn't spoken all this time said coldly, "We are from Ani Prefecture. This is our Ani Prefecture's 4th Miss, Guan Ying. That is our Ani Prefecture's Pundit Zhao." The elderly man who was respectfully addressed as Pundit Zhao had his eyes tightly closed from beginning to end as he sat on the side with his arms crossed in repose. Fan Shoha cupped his hands at them. "The Crown Princess is heading to Jiaozhong Fortification to clean up the remaining zombies. Along the way, she brought along 100 great mystic cultivators level 11 and above. The fourth Miss, Guan Ying, couldn't help but scoff when she heard this, her expression somewhat mocking and apathetic. Oh. 100 great level 11 mystic cultivators? That's a lot. Unfortunately, they are all ants in our eyes. Guan Ying giggled. Fan Xiuhe's eyes flickered, and he said with a smile, that's natural. How can the Crown Princess party compare to you experts? You brat, your words are very pleasing to the ear. Guan Ying smiled at Fan Xiuhe. How about this, you will take us to that base. I'm truly curious about that Crown Princess. Did she obtain the Xuanji core or not? Fan Xiuhe chuckled. How can an ant be worthy of possessing a divine item like the Xuanji core? Even if she obtained it, it would inevitably become Mrs. He, ha ha ha. Guan Ying laughed loudly and nodded approvingly. She looked at Fan Xiuhe and said, you brat, you're very good at causing trouble. On the side, Fan Xiuming was anxious for a while. Big brother, this. Could it be that Big Brother still didn't know the Crown Princess's methods after interacting with her until now? If the Crown Princess learned that it was their Fan clan that betrayed her, then how could she let them off? The entire family would suffer. At that time, would they be able to withstand the flames of the Crown Prince's rage? Fan Xiuhe looked at his younger brother coldly. Qiuming, you don't have to meddle in this matter anymore. He was still worrying about how to make his move, but the time given by that person was running out. Their previous encounter in the Mystic Beast Forest made him feel that it was impossible for him to approach this Crown Princess. For some reason, the Crown Princess was like a lunatic. Every time she saw him, she wanted to kill him. But he had clearly never exposed his identity in front of her, so how did she know that he had ill intentions towards her? His original plan was to slowly infiltrate and get in touch with her through the Giant Bear Squad. After all, according to his previous investigation, she had always treated the Giant Bear Squad differently. But from the looks of it now, there was no chance at all. That person had already given the order to get rid of her as soon as possible. There was no need to do anything useless. Since that was the case, it was a good opportunity for him to borrow the strength of others and eliminate them with his bare hands. Fan Xiuhe exhaled deeply and looked at Guan Ying with a smile. It's just that the journey to Jiaozhong is rather long. Don't worry about that. With Reverend Zhao's six-winged goshawk, there's no need to worry about the journey. Fan Xiuhe smiled. That's great. Chapter 1296. Arbor didn't know that a sizable storm was approaching her. She followed the group of people and wandered around the city lord's mansion before following the crowd to the main hall of the city lord's mansion. It's very strange. Liang Qingxing scratched her head and said, why haven't we seen anything after walking around in such a big circle? Could it be that we came too late? All the zombies have already escaped from Jiaozhong fortification? Impossible. If that's really the case, then how do we explain the thousands of villagers? They would have long been torn apart and devoured by the zombies that caught up. Mo Lian's eyes flickered, and she happened to meet Arbor's gaze when she turned her head. The two of them nodded at the same time. Mo Lian turned to instruct everyone, look around. There might be a secret passage here. That Lu Yuan said that it was the city lord and madam who led 2,000 loyalists and risked their lives to buy some time for the citizens to escape. But there wasn't a single zombie in the city lord's estate right now. Unless there was a secret passage, how else could this strange situation be explained? Hence, everyone spontaneously dispersed and knocked around the surroundings to search for a secret passage. After searching the main hall, they continued to search inside and circled the city lord's estate again before finally gathering next to a dry well in the backyard. Someone had used several huge rocks to firmly press down the well's mouth. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and they all had their own guesses. This well's mouth is narrow, but some of these level 5 zombies are comparable to great mystic cultivators, so it's not like they can't push these huge rocks away, Mo Lian said in confusion. Unless there are no zombies in this well at all. Duanyu pursed his lips and kicked at a rock. We'll know once we open it. Several mystic cultivators stepped forward and helped Duanyu remove several boulders from the mouth of the well, revealing a pitch-black opening. Be careful. Arbor threw out a crow-gold arrow and shot the chest of a zombie that suddenly wanted to jump out of the well. That thing crashed heavily on the ground before quickly moving again. Its hands were twisted as it supported itself on the ground. Its head was half-drooping as it stretched out its half-missing neck and flicked out a long tongue. It looked extremely disgusting as hell. The female mystic cultivator quickly added a burst of mystic energy to that zombie's head and flung it several meters away before it rolled heavily into a corner. Everyone was disgusted by this thing and averted their gazes in disdain. However, just as everyone was about to enter the well, that zombie that was originally flung motionless in the corner suddenly twisted and turned its tattered body, strenuously trying to pounce into the crowd. Why isn't it dead? The female mystic cultivator was alarmed and furious. Just now, her profound energy had clearly landed on its head, and according to common sense, this corpse puppet should be thoroughly dead. However, it was completely fine and could still move stealthily on the ground. I'll be. The Maketes. Everyone turned their heads, but Arbor looked coldly at the rotten head that had fallen down. His eyes moved slightly and fell on the small crystal the size of a grain of rice that had fallen out of the mucus in the head. What is that? Duanyu walked up and picked up that grain of rice before turning back to look at Arbor. It's a crystal core. Chapter 1297. Crystal core? This was the first time everyone heard that a crystal core could form in a zombie's head. Wasn't that something only mystic beasts had? Arbor's expression was especially grave. Zombies with crystal cores in their heads only appeared 2 years after she trained with the huge bear squad in her previous life. At that time, she should have been 18 years old. This meant that zombies had surpassed elementary level 5 3 years in advance and reached the standard of intermediate level zombies. Some of them had enough intelligence and could play some low-level and immature schemes with normal people. Arbor took out a bag and pattered to Duanyu's side, having him throw this lustrous green crystal into the bag. Duanyu's mouth twitched. It's useful? Arbor shook her head. She really wasn't sure if it was useful or not. In her previous life, she was captured by Fan Xiuhan not long after the crystal appeared in a zombie's head, so she didn't have time to properly study this thing's use. With the mentality of not wasting it, she planned to collect it first. Go down the well? Everyone circled the well and threw in a match. However, the well was quite deep, and the match disappeared after a long time. Arbor glanced at Mo Lien. I'll go first. Everyone hastily stopped her. Wait. I'll go first. In this kind of situation, us men naturally have to take the lead. The mystic cultivator with the broad axe holstered his large axe behind his waist. He dug out a cumbersome set of armor from his inner world and equipped himself from head to toe. Only his eyes and mouth were exposed as he grinned at everyone. Big Brother Axe, be careful, Arbor warned with a stoic face, but everyone was thunderstruck by her Big Brother Axe. Brother Axe nodded and turned his wristband, covering his body with a transparent protective shield. The level of his defensive mystic weapon wasn't too high, but it was enough to deal with the bites of a few scattered zombies. Moreover, he was fully prepared. Zombies couldn't bite through such a thick armor at all. Take this. Duanyu tossed him a stick with a luminous pearl fixed to the top. It was probably a lighting tool he made himself, so there was no problem with lighting up a small area. Brother Axe nodded and took it. He placed the luminous pearl stick on his waist and then took a deep breath. He leaped to the mouth of the well and slowly slid down vertically. His speed was not too fast. There was a circle of people surrounding the well, ready to attack. If a zombie pounced out, they would be able to rescue it in time. About 5 minutes later, Brother Axe landed at the bottom of the well. He swiftly killed 2 zombies that pounced on him. Then, he shouted to the top of the well, "Come down, there aren't any zombies here." With a swing of his axe, he chopped off the head of a small corpse puppet hidden in the dark. After rummaging through the corpse, he didn't find that kind of crystal nucleus, so he gave up. At this time, everyone had already slid down the well. They looked at the passageway in front of them, which was wide enough for one person. Huff, huff, huff. The torches were ignited, and for a moment, the entire passageway was illuminated as if it was daytime. Many corpse puppets were lying motionless in the tunnel. Arbor collected those tiny crystal nuclei as she walked. "Let's go." Everyone caught up with the group and vigilantly looked around. Suddenly, Mo Lien lightly tugged on her small hand. Xiao Mu stopped in her tracks and looked up. Not far from the end of the passageway, a figure had appeared at some point. 5 chapters first, I'll be busy again these next few days. There are still 5 chapters at night. Chapter 1298. However, that figure was like a ghost, disappearing in the blink of an eye. A female mystic cultivator shrieked and reflexively wiped her eyes. "He's gone." Pretending to be mysterious, Arbor flicked a silver needle forward with a flick of her finger. Ding, a light sound was heard. The silver needle actually fell to the ground as if it had collided with a wall. Everyone was slightly shocked. From where they were, they could clearly see that the path ahead was empty and there were no walls or anything like that blocking the way. "This is a bit interesting," eldest young Sir Qin said with a chuckle as he waved the fan in his hand. "Say, do you think we really encountered a ghost?" Arbor glanced at him and suddenly said, "You go." The eldest young Sir looked at her pitifully. "Why am I the vanguard?" Arbor glanced at him coldly and said reluctantly, "You're awesome." Eldest young Sir Qin blinked and immediately put on a radiant expression. "Really? You really think I'm awesome? Okay. Then I'll go." Eldest young Sir Qin walked forward smugly, as if he had received the greatest glory. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. When they turned around, they saw Prince Mo and 4th young Master Duan both revealing disdainful expressions and rolling their eyes in unison. A small chick with cyan feathers landed on Arbor's shoulder. Arbor glanced at Mo Lien from the corner of her eyes and explained in a rare effort, "Let him be the coolie and open the way." Duan you, what to do? This little fellow was becoming more and more adorable. This explained why she had praised that eldest Qin before, right? The eldest young Sir didn't understand, but he was quite cheerful. Not long after he walked up, he paced back and forth beside that invisible wall. Suddenly, he slapped out a burst of mystic energy on that wall. However, that wall was as soft as cotton, sucking in his palm until it caved in. Then, it fiercely rebounded. Eldest Qin wasn't slapped away by the wall. Instead, he leaned slightly to the side and forcefully tore the wall in front of him with both hands. Following a light tearing sound, a hole was torn open in the wall. Eldest Qin narrowed his eyes slightly and released several bursts of mystic energy with a swing of his hand, knocking the 3 zombies that suddenly pounced over to the ground. Everyone concentrated their firepower and blasted the dozen or so zombies behind the invisible wall into pieces within minutes. Then, he stepped on the corpses on the ground and walked over. Arbor held a pair of copper tweezers and bent down to pick up a small amount of crystal nuclei. Occasionally, he would be disgusted by the wide-eyed corpse hag on the ground and raise his hand to pat his chest. The group successfully passed through the tunnel. Not long after, they saw light coming from the opposite side. Speaking of which, this passageway was actually not very long. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, they had almost reached the end. Eldest Qin extended his hand to stop everyone. He tilted his head slightly and sniffed. "Do you smell anything?" "What kind of smell can it have?" "The stench of decay." Duan Yu harumphed. "Don't tell me you're scared." "Me? Scared?" Eldest young Sir Qin couldn't help but feel exasperated. He glanced sideways at Qin Xian and said, "There's nothing in this world that I Qin Xian, am afraid of. Duan Yu replied with a chuckle before pointing ahead. Open the path. Eldest young Sir Qin reluctantly stepped forward. Just as he was about to squeeze out of the tunnel, he heard two roars. He hastily retreated a step and dodged to the side of the tunnel. Two sturdy zombies leaped in from the tunnel, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the people in front of them. Chapter 1299. Ugly. Arbor shot an arrow at that zombie at close range. The crowgold arrow pierced through the zombie's head, but it didn't damage its crystal core, so it still pounced at Duan Yu's face. You're courting death. Duan Yu decisively took out a small and exquisite gun and fired at that zombie's head. Boom! The zombie's head immediately caught on fire. After it burned to ashes, a green crystal core slightly bigger than a grain of rice dropped out. Arbor picked it up with a pair of tweezers and tossed it into the sack. He then turned to shout at eldest Qin, who was hiding at the side of the tunnel, "Clear the way. Everyone, dot." Eldest young Sir Qin shook his head exasperatedly and waved the fan in his hand as he lamented with a sigh, "How did I end up with a little thing like you?" Eldest Qin's figure flashed, and after tearing apart the other transparent wall covering the tunnel, earth-shattering hissing and roaring mixed with several shrieks instantly flooded into everyone's eardrums. Eldest Qin was startled, and after a moment of hesitation, he crawled out of the tunnel. Subsequently, he extended his hand, and eldest Qin blocked Duan Yu and the others with an unsightly expression. "I'm telling you, if you return the way you came, there might still be time," eldest young Sir Qin murmured softly. Arbor pushed aside eldest young Sir Qin's blocking body and was startled when he crawled out of the tunnel to take a look. Duan Yu, Mo Lian, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others also walked out. When everyone clearly saw the scene before them, they all gasped. There was a small plaza in front of them, and there was a torch-shaped circular platform in the center with a statue of the city lord placed on it. However, countless people were crawling on top of it at this moment, probably more than 1,000 of them. They were intertwined together like twisted dough, and the people on top were stepping on the heads of the people below. Everyone was finding a place to cling to tightly and doing their best to climb up. However, there was even a pot-bellied old man hanging from the top of that statue's head, swaying in the air with a pale face. When he saw that the crowd below was still endlessly climbing up, the old man couldn't help but shriek, "Don't push up, don't push up." Ah! He was pushed by the crowd below, and his body tumbled down from the top of the sculpture. On the round platform stood a circle of mystic cultivators and body cultivators who were on the verge of exhausting their mystic energy. Unable to even take care of themselves, they simply didn't have the strength to reach out and grab the falling old man. Everyone watched as he fell off the base of the statue and was torn into pieces by a group of roaring corpse puppets. In just a few seconds, he was reduced to a bloody mess. Oh my God! Liang Qingqing was used to seeing big scenes, but at this moment, she couldn't help but tremble slightly. As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of corpse puppets. Mo Lian was also a little shocked, but she didn't show the same panic as the others. Previously, when Bailon City was besieged by tens of thousands of zombies, at the very least, they still had their unstoppable city walls and tens of thousands of citizens as their backing. But now, their team only had about 100 people. It was definitely unwise to fight head-on. It seemed like the only option was to retreat first. Retreat! Mo Lian shouted. Everyone made a prompt decision and turned to run into the tunnel. However, at this moment, those despairing people on the round platform had already discovered them, and they immediately shouted, "Save us! Don't go! Don't go!" Arbor looked back and saw two body cultivators holding heavy swords tumbling down from the round platform due to lack of strength. Chapter 1300. No, I beg you, don't go. Have a benevolent heart and save us. Jojo, let's go. Duan Yu tugged at her, and the group sprinted up the passageway at full speed. They used a speed at least 3 times faster than when they came. When they saw the well opening not far above them, a bright light suddenly flashed at the opening of the well. Duan Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he was just about to reach out to grab Arbor when Mo Lien pressed him to the ground and ordered sternly, "Get down." Boom! A huge tremor suddenly resounded in the narrow passageway. It instantly caused everyone's ears to buzz, and their faces turned pale. Someone had blown up the well opening. The collapsed rubble rolled down and instantly blocked half of the passageway. If they hadn't crawled up and retreated several dozen meters, some of them would probably have been buried alive. Damn it! Viciousness flitted across eldest young Sir Chin's eyes. The huge tremor attracted a portion of the zombies outside. However, the passageway was narrow, so the zombies couldn't pass through in large batches. Every time one of them came in, they would take care of it. Arbor's dark eyes gazed at the zombies blocking the passageway. Duan Yu. Okay, use firearms. Previously, they were worried that using large firearms would cause the passageway to collapse, but since it had already collapsed, it didn't matter if they blew it up again. Duan Yu took out a sparkling emerald bead from his sleeve and abruptly flicked it into the air. Then, he took out a green bamboo tube from his waist and opened the back cover, abruptly sucking the emerald bead into it. Retreat. Everyone simultaneously retreated at Mo Lien's command. At the same time, Duan Yu's finger abruptly twisted open the mechanism at the end of the bamboo tube. With a light press, a green light instantly exploded. After a ray of light shot out, it landed at the feet of the zombie horde outside, triggering a huge boom before exploding into large patches of flames. Arbor's eyes lit up, and she rummaged through her inner world. She also took out a small box and took out the 9 jade heavenly thunder that she had confiscated earlier. Wait, we'll use it when we reach the zombie horde. Duan Yu winked at her before waving his hand and saying, "It seems there's no way out now. We'll kill our way out. There must be a way out at the back of this plaza." Everyone gritted their teeth and charged out with him. Due to the might of the 9 jade heavenly thunder, one side of the small round platform had sunk into a sea of flames, and many zombies roared and struggled. But this fire also spread to the people on the round platform sculptures. Due to the heat of the fire, the mid and low-level mystic cultivators on the round platform who were barely resisting the zombie army were still fine, but the people hugging the bronze sculptures were a bit miserable, tsts, and felt and fell. Waved the waved ts. Below, there was a sea of corpses, and all the zombies raised their crooked arms, attempting to pull those normal people off the sculptures. Arbor released Qinghuan and flew up. It spat out a mouthful of ice, and several hundred zombies were pierced by sharp ice blades. But even if they had ice stuck to their heads or bodies, most of them were still able to move freely. They swayed their bodies and ran crookedly toward Arbor. Qinghuan had just flapped its wings and flew up when it saw a thick fog rolling toward it. Chapter 1301. A heavy gravity tugged at it, causing it to abruptly plummet downwards. Screech, screech, screech. Student Qinghuan angrily steadied itself and abruptly flew over the heads of the shrieking zombies. There's something strange about this place. Master, I can't fly high. It's fine. Let me go to the round platform. Jojo. Mo Lien anxiously flew up when he saw this little fellow actually heading towards the statue. However, in less than a second, he also felt his body sink as he was abruptly pulled down by a force of gravity. Duan Yu raised his hand and beheaded a zombie that was pouncing at Mo Lien. Afterwards, he shouted at him, "Go watch over her. I'll stop her here." Mo Lien nodded and didn't say anything else as he dashed towards the round platform. However, due to gravity, his feet practically brushed past the zombies' heads, and a corner of his robe was torn by the zombies' rotting hands. It shattered with a ripping sound. When he strode to the base of the statue next to Arbor, his face involuntarily darkened when he looked down. His perfectly fine white robe had been torn to shreds by those beasts. Arbor held the jade heavenly thunder in his hand as he turned to the other side of the round platform. His eyes flickered with faint excitement as he fired a shot at the group of zombies. Boom! After a loud sound, the burning zombies rolled all over the ground, severely affecting a large area. At this time, a young, exhausted female mystic cultivator's eyes abruptly flashed with a venomous glint, and she abruptly struck Arbor's back. Die. Callie. Mo Lien's gaze had always been on his little wife and had never landed on anyone else. At this time, he was also the quickest to react. When he saw that crazy female mystic cultivator was actually attacking Jojo from behind, he swung his palm across the air and heavily slapped the other party's face. That female mystic cultivator, called Callie, cried out in alarm and almost tumbled off the round platform. If it weren't for the two strong teammates beside her pulling her back, she would have already fallen down and become a feast for the zombies. Callie's venomous gaze fell on Mo Lien. That damn gigolo actually dared to hit her. She yelled angrily at Mo Lien and Arbor, "You could have attacked just now. Yet, he thought of abandoning us and running away. Now, he must have been forced to retreat. How could he hide such a powerful firearm? What a pair of bitches." Mo Lien's hand that was holding Arbor stiffened. Damn, this was the first time someone called him and Jojo a pair of bitches. Arbor blinked, not understanding why the woman was so angry. Her indifferent voice sounded, "You are not my teammates." Everyone on the round platform who was filled with righteous indignation was slightly stunned when they heard this. Then, as if someone had hit them on the head with a hammer, they all became a little listless. Even though it was regrettable, she still had to consider the safety of her teammates in such a dangerous situation. "Do you think you can leave safely with firearms? There were over 10,000 corpse puppets here. At most, only 1,000 or so had been taken care of by firearms. Even though these corpse puppets were on fire, most of them could still move around. These kind of corpse puppets were also very dangerous. If a normal person was hugged by them, they would be burned alive even if they weren't bitten to death." At this time, Duan Yu, eldest Qin, and the others led a group of great mystic cultivators to protect the four superhumans. They slaughtered a bloody path and rushed down the round platform. Upon seeing this, Arbor pulled Mo Lien and jumped down together. Chapter 1302. Mo Lien opened her palm, and a defensive boundary fell on everyone. "Kill our way out," Duan Yu shouted. They had to charge out as fast as they could while carving out a bloody path. Otherwise, it would be difficult to break out of the encirclement if they were surrounded again. Now that the zombie horde was in chaos due to the explosion of firearms, when would they leave if not now? The 100-man team of great mystic cultivators twisted into a rope and blasted towards one direction with all their might. They advanced forward with great difficulty like a meat grinder pushing forward layer by layer. "Hurry and get down." The mystic cultivators and body cultivators on the round platform roared at the group of people who were hugging the statue like fried dough twists. "Follow them." The group of twisted dough twists started arguing. A portion of them insisted on leaving with the main group, while another portion believed that going down now was no different from courting death. Some people who were crushed in the pile of twisted dough twists wanted to come out, but the people on the outer layer refused to withdraw their hands. As a result, loud arguments, cries, and screams filled this area. Several young lads forcefully shook off the people on their backs. In order to survive, they didn't care about the lives of those idiots. Only idiots would continue hanging here like fried dough twists. If they didn't take advantage of the situation and leave with that powerful team now, they would leave their lives here. "No, no. Don't push me, no." A young girl hanging on the outer layer screamed and fell off the statue. The hands of two slightly older elders involuntarily trembled when they saw the young girl being torn to pieces. A young man on the inner layer kicked them out, and the two screamed as they fell down. Those nimble young men climbed out of the group of twisted dough twists and jumped off the round platform, running after Arbor's group. However, the majority of people were unwilling to get down from the statue because they were in a wait-and-see mode. Everyone, please wait. We are a rescue team from Rice City. A brawny body cultivator who had pulled Callie up earlier called out from behind Arbor's group. Can you please help them and wait a moment? Let me persuade them. Soft-hearted. Eldest young Sir Cheen turned his head and coldly reprimanded. Since those people still wanted to wait and see in this situation, then let them continue to wait and see. Why bother with them? Xiao Mu curled her lips with a mocking gaze. If he had the time, he might as well kill a few more corpse puppets and quickly get out of this mountain of corpses. Smelling the stench, there was a rotten smell everywhere. That team from Rice City must be a bunch of idiots from Notre Dame. Just let them stay here and shine. Help them? He had hands and feet, so why didn't he jump down at the right time and follow the group? If they insisted on hanging themselves on the statue, what could they do about it? His skills were not good, and his brain was disabled. Such a person would not live long even if he was saved. It wasn't that they were cold-blooded, but they had seen too many idiots and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Let's go. At Arbor's command, the 100-man team of great mystic cultivators quickened their pace and rapidly advanced. Wait! The rescue team from Rice City panicked. Carly ran after him and screamed, "Let's go! That damned cold-blooded troop! How dare they leave us in the lurch again and again!" Gah! An extremely unpleasant roar rolled out from the layers of black fog. When the corpse puppets heard this roar, it was as if they had been given some kind of military order. As if injected with chicken blood, they roared angrily at the sky and surrounded the group without a care. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.